Welcome to our 2018 Saratoga season recap. Fun season up here, lots of great stakes action. The undercard races, very intriguing as well. Hopefully everybody cashed some tickets, but certainly a winner as far as the guests we had here. Up first, boy, it was a great meet for trainer Jonathan Thomas. Wins the Travers with Catholic Boy. Jonathan Thomas up next. Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrill and Steve Bick live from Saratoga. Backstretch, beautiful morning here. Should be a great racing day, and it was a great racing day yesterday. Man of the hour, Jonathan Thomas, trainer at Catholic Boy. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
How was the evening? How was dinner in the evening last night?
You know, believe it or not, I was in bed by 9:45, and I had a dinner through a drive-through last night. It was pretty low-key, but, you know, we celebrated back at the barn with all the right people, and right before he left, Javier was the last guy to show up. Spent about 10 minutes in the stall with Catholic Boy, petting on him, and kind of gave us the replay of the race. And honestly, I don't think that we could have had a better experience than back there with him.
That's nice. So if you win the Super Bowl, you're going to Disney World. If you win the Travers, you're going to Burger King. Is that how it works?
Well, when I worked for Todd, I remember Super Saver, his post-race dinner was pizza with his family. So, you know, listen, we're happy to be a part of these things, and you know, we can celebrate with our own, you know.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on at the beginning of the meet. We're certainly happy to have you on this afternoon, this morning, going back to yesterday afternoon, the nice win in the Travers. Just talk about overall. You can tell just from what you said so far, but overall, what was the experience like?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was really surreal. You know, we were taking a horse over that we had a lot of confidence in, and to see him deliver and really see everything play out perfect. You know, it's such a rare thing to have happen in horse racing, but from the time we saddled up and he looked the part in the paddock, he left the pony and warmed up stellar. I had a lot of confidence in how he was getting over the racetrack. And then Javier, you know, what can I say about his ride? It was a balance of authoritative but like balanced authority. You know, he took the race by the scruff of the neck and you know, he just looked like a tiger ready to pounce the entire time. And when they threw up the fractions, I just, you know, it was weird to feel that good. I was just waiting for it to get polished off, but it really was like everything went perfect.
Yeah. Can we watch? Should we roll the tape and are we going to watch the whole thing? We have the whole thing?
Yeah, I believe we do have the whole thing.
How much concern of the things that were being talked about, first and foremost, was, you know, the turf conversion, number one, and then you draw the 11 hole. What were the thoughts from that standpoint, and take us around?
Well, starting from the turf to dirt conversion, I mean, you know, his body of work on the dirt up to this point, you know, it was light in the sense that we hadn't run him a whole lot on it, but what he had done gave us the confidence to try it. You know, his Remsen effort was good, or very good. The Sam Davis, you know, numerically was very strong in the Florida Derby. We kind of drew a line through that race. Most importantly, it trained on this particular track extremely well in his breezes. The 11 hole, I actually loved it because we had an opportunity to keep his face clean and to break and allow the pace to develop inside of us. And, you know, Javier did just an extremely good job of getting a great position going into the first turn. And here, you know, when they threw up this 23-2, I just thought there is no excuse from here. Literally, you know, if we have the horse, if Javier has the horse underneath of him, it was just a matter of executing. This is the most painful time because you're just sitting here until, you know, it's time to throw down.
What are you watching at this point? Are you watching for somebody to come get you guys, or are you focused totally on Mendelssohn and where you're standing?
At this point of horse race, I pay a lot of attention to the rider and his body language. I mean, at this point, Javier has never moved, and it's kind of like a poker game, who throws their cards in last. And at this point in time, Javier has not thrown a card down. You know, he's kind of just seeing what he has underneath of him. But I thought as the race would develop, distance-wise, we were always going to get stronger.
You could tell as they went into the turn, everybody else is asking, and Ryan Moore and Javi are just riding.
Yeah, I mean, by the time we turn in here, it's just a matter of polishing the race off. But there was no, not to jump the gun, but at this point, I knew it was going to be over.
And I heard you, of course, in the press conference afterward, you did express some surprise at how dominant at this point this turns out to be.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a rout now.
These are good horses. These are good horses with top international and national connections. I mean, you've got Aiden O'Brien, Chad Brown, Todd Fletcher, D. Wayne Lucas. I mean, these are all guys that I look up to on a daily basis, and to be competitive in this kind of an arena with this kind of horse and have things go the way they have, it's a dream come true.
Sixth Travers for Javier Castellano, who is this actually. I thought of this, in fact, late last night, that it's become a little unusual now with him. It's becoming almost Pat Day-esque in terms of him racking up wins in race like this, the way Pat did in Preaknesses without a Derby, and then eventually Day got his Derby, and Javier will get his, and so forth. But it's amazing in this age, in this era, for a guy to win 6 Travers, and he's mid-career.
No, I'd agree. I mean, we're just getting into the arena where we have horses good enough to call on a guy like Javier. We're not going to inundate him with horses we don't believe in, but the relationships that has developed in a short amount of time, I can't tell you how much a fan I've become of his just from his preparation. He's got a great horsemanship on top of his riding skills, and he comes so prepared, but he makes everything look so easy. I mean, that ride, it just looked like we were going through the motions. I mean, and he's just a super talent. He's obviously a Hall of Famer that's got a lot of career ahead of him. If you could get inducted twice, maybe he's a candidate. But listen, we're just thrilled with what he's done for our team.
To the horse for a minute, and then we'll talk, and part of it, your horsemanship as well, and your career arc. And you showed a video to Sean Clancy yesterday, and I asked you to forward it to us, and you got to see this. Because if you want to have confidence about observing a horse going into race day, when you see a horse behaving like this in the round pen, you must have been very confident.
Yeah, it's like a little addition to what we do. I mean, we bring it kind of from home, but I love getting my horses out after they train, they get to roll and play and kind of crack their backs, and they're like any of us. We need space, and they get kind of uninterrupted time away from people and just get to be a horse for a little bit and get dirty before they get a bath. But every day they'll kind of tell you something different with their body language, and I love seeing horses get up and buck and squeal and play, and it's indicative of them just feeling good. And this is him yesterday morning, about 10 o'clock, on race day, and he just really enjoys himself. And part of our job, it's not only to train them physically, but mentally. I like to keep our horses happy. It's a really important thing for me.
Well, the horse is happy. The groom is not happy. When they start pawing at the ground, usually after a bath, and all of a sudden they start to paw and they're going to roll.
This is before bath. This is before bath.
They'll do it. They'll do it. A lot of times, you'll give them a bath, and the groom's like, no.
Believe me, this groom is not complaining about anything right now.
Jonathan, for you, I mean, to deal with the adversity and the curveballs that were thrown from the winter into the spring, and having to kind of reboot the season. You talk about calling on your horsemanship.
Well, we've always not let a race be more important than the horse. Don't get me wrong. I love the thought of the Derby, but I think it has too much clout, and I think some horses are kind of pigeonholed to get there at their expense. And the one thing, and it might cost me people down the road, but I'm never going to put the horse before the race ever, including the Derby. And when we knew we couldn't get there the right way and put this horse and showcase him in the right way, we came up with a game plan. All the owners were on board, and Mr. LaPenta has been such a patient guy in letting us develop this horse, and it's nice to see putting the horse first pay off, because without them, we're all just up here talking about nothing. So that as a horseman, it means a lot to me. But you can't do it without the backing of your clients and them understanding. And obviously, he responded the right way to taking care of him.
I want to go back and, talking about the break you had to take after the Florida Derby and regroup and come back in the Pennine Ridge, followed up with a win in the Belmont Derby, a grade 1 at 1.25 miles on the turf, now a grade 1 at 1.25 miles on the dirt. But I wanted to go back to that regroup race because that was just a freakish performance. We're going to watch the stretch run to the Pennine Ridge. And for folks who don't remember, at this point, Analyze It is kind of considered a potential superstar on the turf. Analyze It's going to be the number 4. Go by. It looks like the race is over. Number 3, Catholic Boy, though, comes back, as I said, in just what was a freakishly good performance. So after the bleeding incident in the Florida Derby, you had to be thrilled with this.
Oh, this was great. He had trained really well up to this, and we were kind of bringing him in 90%, 85% from a fitness standpoint, really targeting the Belmont Derby. And listen, Analyze It is a very good horse, and we had a lot of respect going into the race, and I hate to ever concede defeat, and settle for second place, but we actually were kind of thinking that going in. So listen, that last eighth of a mile, I just turned into a fan. I was screaming and grabbing everyone near me, and we were just, you don't expect efforts like that. So it's it was a real thrill.
Coming out of that and the Belmont Derby, I saw a note from Andy Serling, brought up a great point that don't know if and when we'll see a Belmont Derby Travers double again. You bring up Bob LaPenta, who of course has had any number of successes in the game, and you were very quick yesterday during the press conference to acknowledge what his confidence in you has meant. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit, Jonathan, because through this whole journey, I've had you on the show. You've talked with me on the radio many times. Starting with you're going out on your own, then tying in with Bridalwood, and then the opportunity that afforded you to meet other people. Some you already knew, some you got reacquainted with, and then build your training career. And talk a little bit about how that has all come to pass and how satisfying it is, the path you ended up taking.
No, I mean, it's completely unorthodox, and it's not something we wrote up on paper, but I always felt like a weak point in me was the actual recruiting of horses and learning about young horses as athletes and trying to get your hands on them, because really it's a recruiting business, and getting the best athlete is going to afford you the best opportunity to succeed. So, I took a step back, went to Ocala, and started to frequent the horse sales, and lucky I got to spend time with Todd and his father, JJ, who are exceptional at purchasing young horses, and try to employ the recruiting and development aspect of it. And as it started to work, some owners came forward about keeping a couple horses and trying it out, and took a small gamble on us. Aaron Wellman being, listen, we wouldn't have gotten the shot without him, because he really was the first guy to say, hey, you've got this great place. You have I've got some horses that'll fit your program, and let's try it. And I said, if you're willing to try it with us, we'll give it a shot. But, we've got a great facility. Catholic Boy, 90% of his training is actually taking place at Bridalwood Farm, the preparation. And it's the beauty of having a training facility, but a spa atmosphere where you can let them be horses a small part of the time. So it satisfies me as a horseman, because I feel like we're getting to cover a lot of bases. But, as time has gone on, we've just met stronger and stronger people and employed better teammates and getting our hands on better quality horses. So I'd like that to be my hub, develop, and if the good ones, we'll bring them to the racetrack and hopefully execute.
Well, and you get, because of your positioning there, you actually are in a more advantageous position to utilize various aspects of the business. I mean, in terms of pin hooking and into 2-year-old and training sales, and then going on with some of the horses that might not fetch the reserve, which is something that Bob LaPenta, that's how Bob LaPenta and Nick Zito built their successes, were on the ones that came home.
No, for sure. And I think you have to be careful of pigeonholing yourself in this business, because if you look at it from a stock portfolio, diversification is really, there's a lot of safety in it, and everything communicates to the next thing. Young horse becomes a racehorse becomes a stallion or a broodmare, and it all cycles back on itself. And my if I have like true heroes in this business, I've always been a huge fan of John Nehrude and Jim Bulger, and the fact that they excelled at every facet of the horse business. Now, I never think about replicating their sort of careers, but I love all the aspects, and I think I get as much enjoyment about having purchased Catholic Boy as a baby as I have trained him, but it's been to be part of the whole package satisfies me as a horseman. But then on the flip side, just in the last week, we broke newspaper record for Chad, who's a good friend of mine, and that felt very good. And we broke Axelman for Michael McCarthy, and he won the Smarty Jones.
Yes.
So even I love still seeing that we're doing what we set out to do, and that's do the best for the horse and the client. And if it means me, that's great. And if it means where they're, other trainers,
Sure.
specifically Todd, Michael McCarthy, and Chad, who have become our core group, that's very satisfying. There's a lot of satisfaction that comes from that too.
Well, of course, now you gotta win something for the little general. For Aaron.
We're gonna try.
Let's talk about this afternoon. As Steve said before we went to the break, there's nothing like the Travers Smart and Fancy double. So we'll see if we can do that this weekend. And you have a nice horse in there. I'm going to pull up the race from Belmont, June 1st. The number 2 will be Tilly's Lily. This was win number 4 in start number 4. Nice turf sprinter steps into Stakes Company this afternoon in the Smart and Fancy. What are your thoughts on Tilly's Lily?
This filly we struggled with as a 2-year-old. She had a couple of slight physical issues that we needed to let her grow out of, and we debuted her last summer, and she just trained gangbusters. I mean, she's a super fast filly, very forward, no quirks at all. We were able to get a couple good races out of her last year, and then we put her away for the winter, kind of hoping to bring her up here to Saratoga and showcase her. And this was her comeback race, and we were very happy with the result. We had her in the Caress, and she spiked a little fever, and it rained, and it rained enough where scratching her made it a little bit more palatable between those two things. And subsequently she's been training well. I think she's going to show up today. I don't have her fully cranked, but if she's as good as I hope she is or think she is, I definitely see her being in the mix today and platforming into another stake out of this.
Yeah, I see the career debut was a win on the dirt and an off the turf event, so maybe next year the ballerina.
Because this is it's the same thing here. We're getting into a management aspect of a horse where she has enough pedigree, she has enough credentials. My job now is to hopefully create some residual value for her. She's a distorted humor filly out of an Empire Maker mare that's a half sister to Monarchos. I bought her for $200 as a yearling. She's probably worth about $6 now as it stands, and if we can get her to win a stake race, the sky's the limit. The distorted humor fillies right now that are stakes winners are probably the most sought after broodmare prospects in this country. So, for our owners, we hope we can capitalize on that at some stage.
This afternoon,
hopefully today.
Smart and Fancy.
Yeah.
All right, Jonathan Thomas, appreciate the visit. Certainly, congratulations on the great run with Catholic Boy, including that Travers yesterday, obviously. And you said at the press conference, I have to ask you, though, you said nothing certain, but you have any game plan next for Catholic Boy?
I mean, tentatively that Jockey Club Gold Cup Hill Prince weekend kind of makes sense. I'm not so sure I wouldn't use the Hill Prince as a platform or prep into the Classic if that's what everybody kind of agrees to. But I certainly have no issue putting this horse back on the turf. It's a nice, kind surface. There's no reason to try to tackle Diversify on his home track, especially horses that run on the lead as fast as they do. You can get in a lot of trouble chasing them, and you can run your eyeballs out and come out worse for the effort. So
Absolutely.
If that was our lone goal, well, then you tackle it. But if our big target, the next target is the Classic, then we need to find a good platform, and the platform might just be training up to it. So which he's running really well fresh, so we have confidence in that. But that weekend's got a big circle around it.
Well, we appreciate the visit, and again, congratulations. Good luck going forward.
Thanks, guys, and appreciate all you all do. Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the visit. We'll take a break when we come back. Congratulations to Jonathan Thomas and team for a great win in the Grade 1 Travers on the dirt, and obviously now the options are wide open. Speaking of the Travers, Randy Moss made his annual pre-Travers visit the Friday before the Travers. It was always fun to talk to the NBC analyst. Giving some thoughts for this weekend, our annual day before the Travers visit from Randy Moss of NBC Sports.
It's a tradition.
It is a tradition, and we enjoy it. Usually Jerry Bailey's here, but you were saying, Jerry, I hadn't even thought of that with the red jacket ceremony this morning.
Jerry has other plans this morning that trump us this time around.
But we will certainly get in plenty of information via Randy and his thoughts. You and I were talking before we went on. Just alert people the broadcast tomorrow, 4 to 6 on NBC.
4 to 6, and we've got 3 live races. We start off with the Forego, which is a win and you're in for the Dirt Mile, coincidentally, even though it's a 7-furlong race. And most of the horses in there, I think the leading contenders are sort of being prepped for the Dirt Mile. Not all of them, but most of them. And then we do the Sword Dancer, and then obviously the Travers.
Yeah, it should be a great broadcast on a great day of racing. The weather has turned, and it looks like it's going to be just a fabulous afternoon. Let's jump in and talk a little Travers Stakes and get some of your thoughts. I handicapped and went with Vino Rosso, and we've shown that, had Todd in yesterday, we showed that race. We've looked at the Good Magic race also over the past couple of days. I wanted to pull up something a little bit different,
okay.
And so I pulled up the Belmont Stakes, and we'll watch Gronkowski run second. Was telling you before we went on the air, I talked to Chad the day before, and he wasn't that high on Gronkowski, but Gronkowski a good second at 1.5 miles. He's now playing into my mix. I'm putting Vino Rosso on top, given what we saw in the Jim Dandy, and I talked to Todd, and they're going to tinker a little bit. I think his fourth in the Belmont indicates, and again, that's Vino Rosso running fourth in this picture as well, bodes well for the 1.25 miles. So I have him on top, the logical Good Magic second, and Gronkowski third, and then kind of the wild card for me, Catholic Boy in the fourth spot. So that's the direction I'm going. What are your thoughts?
Well, the Belmont's an interesting race because, for a variety of reasons. First of all, Gronkowski, you see him galloping out nicely there up to Justify, ran a legitimately strong race. He got a perfect trip. He got through on the rail all the way.
After a bad start, too.
He got the Euro break, right? But Chad had only had Gronkowski at that point for a few weeks. Didn't really know what to think of him. Gronkowski was, quite frankly, the butt of a lot of jokes going into the Kentucky Derby when they wanted to run him in the Derby. Most of us, the majority of analysts out there, horse players, kind of felt Gronkowski, all right, he's coming off of synthetic races over in Europe, and because he's named Gronkowski, people are going to bet on him. He'll be 15-1. He deserves to be 50-1. He'll probably be 30 lengths in the Derby. He missed the Derby because of a foot bruise, but lo and behold, he runs a heck of a race in the Belmont Stakes. He probably had to be a little short because he hadn't run in quite a while. Now he's going 1.5 miles. Chad's had him in his barn now for a lot longer. So I think you can legitimately expect to see a better Gronkowski in the Travers than you did in the Belmont. On the other hand, in the Belmont Stakes proper, just looking at the Belmont Stakes, I think Vino Rosso was the second best horse in that race. John Velazquez had to use him early to try to go after Justify, who was getting a cakewalk on the front end.
And I had Todd in yesterday, and that's exactly what he said. He said he didn't blame Johnny Velazquez because he kind of had to make that early.
He was riding to win.
Yeah, exactly.
If he had been complacent and had set back and wanted to finish second, I think Vino Rosso would have run second. But he had to try to tie into Justify early. And as a result, Vino Rosso weakened a little bit in the last eighth of a mile. So it's just another interesting element when you look at this Travers Stakes. There's a lot of horses in here that could run well, and it's going to be a fascinating race.
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of good storylines. You have the filly in here, and you have Mendelssohn, and I'll ask you some of your thoughts on some of those horses, because Mendelssohn, to me, the UAE Derby was phenomenal, but the filly ran second, and I don't know whether the filly's proven that she's super special necessarily. So I have kind of taken a stand against in the last couple of starts, and that's worked out for me. I'll take a stand against Mendelssohn again. If that one wins, I'll be on the sidelines, but it is Aidan O'Brien coming over with a horse, so I have to pay attention just on that fact.
I took a huge stand against him in the Kentucky Derby. In fact, I said on the air he had absolutely no chance to win. He's not as good as he looked in the UAE Derby. The racetrack was hugely speed biased that day. and he got a beautiful rail trip on the lead, playing to the strength of the racetrack. He ran a heck of a race, but he's just not as good as he looked in that race. Okay, he runs in the Derby. That race is a throwout, sloppy track. Just didn't get the right trip, got bounced around a lot. So how good is he? We didn't know. He comes back and he runs in the United States last time out at a mile. He had a beautiful trip, set second in a perfect spot, and then went to the lead around the turn and then came up empty. So at that point, we're like, well, okay, Mendelssohn has been exposed. He's not nearly as good as everyone thought he was. Now we learn that there was a virus going through the Aidan O'Brien barn at the training center at Ballydoyle at about that time. And they really were very skeptical as to whether he could win that race at Belmont because of that. They think now he's going to make a big step forward from that race. But we still don't know if he's good enough. I don't think he is.
Yeah, as I say, I'm going to take a stand against, but you have to pay attention. It's Aidan O'Brien taking the shot to come back yet again. I'll ask you about the filly, Wonder Gadot. We were up at the Queen's Plate. She looked great against the boys up there. Followed up in the sloppy Fort Erie to put in 2 legs of the Canadian Triple Crown. I talked to Mark Cassidy before the Queen's Plate. He says 1.25 miles will hit her right between the eyes. And I applaud them in that you get past Justify. I think this 3-year-old division is undefined, so I applaud them for taking the shot. I'm not totally convinced, but again, Mark thinks the 1.25 miles is going to play right into her strengths.
I'm not totally convinced, but I do think she's up in the mix. I really do think she deserves to be in the exotics. First of all, she's going to get a great trip from post 3. She's going to drop over, save ground, or post 2. She's going to drop over, save ground on the rail, probably 3-4 lengths off the pace, within contact of the early leaders. I know some people out there think, well, she's not good enough. My response to that was, if Monomoy Girl was in the Travers, would you think she had a chance? And most people would say, yeah. I think. Well, I mean, look at the Kentucky Oaks, right? Wonder Gadot is just as good as Monomoy Girl, in my opinion. If not, then she's not far behind as she was in the Oaks. So I think she deserves to be in the mix. I really do.
That's a great kind of connection because in this particular season, as I say, once you get past Justify and given what Monomoy Girl has done, it would be interesting to see how she stacked up against this bunch. I know you guys, and you talked about the pace already. I know typically you'll do a little pace scenario on the broadcast. Have you kind of played that out so far?
Yeah, well, Trigger Warning is almost certainly, if he breaks, going to go to the lead. Not just because he's got the #1 post. I mean, that factors in there as well, but that's really his game, right? So he's a long shot. They're going to hope that they leave him alone on the front end, and that's got to be the strategy for Trigger Warning. Mendelssohn is a speed horse. Ryan Moore, when he comes over here and rides on dirt in America, typically is very aggressive. So I think Mendelssohn will be sitting just outside of Trigger Warning in second. I expect Good Magic to be right up there in the mix as well, but Bravazzo, Tenfold aren't going to be very far behind. But that's the top 3, the way I see it right now, playing around the first turn and down the backstretch.
Want to hit on one other horse and get some thoughts. Catholic Boy, just because, again, that's another one of the intriguing stories in the race. Last 2 starts on turf against Analyze It, who at that point was looked at as the top in that subdivision of 3-year-olds on the turf, and they had 2 ding-dong battles. Both of those where Catholic Boy seemed out of it, particularly 2 races back in the Pennine Ridge, and just had a miracle run in the last 70 or 100 yards to get it done. The Remsen last year, we were down for that, so that shows the horse can run on dirt, but I think there's still a big question mark. I will note, though, that last race, the Belmont Derby, was at the 1.25 miles, so has successfully negotiated the distance. He's the intriguing horse in the race.
I think he's a cool horse. I'd obviously love to own Catholic Boy. You got to respect a lot about Catholic Boy. I think he's just about as good on dirt as he is on grass. When you look at his last 2 races, okay, with Analyze It, we saw it happen once, and it made me wonder. You saw it happen twice, and I'm of the opinion that even though Catholic Boy is a very determined game horse, the outcome of those 2 races, I think, had more to do with Analyze It pulling himself up when he made the lead than it did Catholic Boy,
certainly
in
the
this
Pennine
amazing
race,
competitiveness and coming to get him. I mean, you got to give Catholic Boy credit for the races that he ran. I think he's about as good talent-wise as most of these, maybe with the exception of Good Magic. What worries me about Catholic Boy in this particular spot, I think the far outside post, the way the race is going to shape up, might wind up costing him a couple of lengths, and I'm not sure he has a couple of lengths to give up in that spot.
Well, I won't make you definitely commit because you probably want to do that on the NBC broadcast, but just tell us maybe who you're tilting towards.
Oh, I can tell you who I'm tilting towards. We've talked about how interesting the race is, and from a handicapping perspective, there's a lot of meat on the bone, right? I think, see if I say this right, there's less not to like about Good Magic than about all the other horses. In other words, you can pick at Bravazzo, you can pick a little at Vino Rosso, his last race in the Jim Dandy. He was kind of disinterested for a lot of the early part of the race. And I know Todd wants to blame it on the track surface. It was fast. Maybe it had some moisture in it. I don't know whether I really go for that or not. You know, you can certainly pick at Tenfold, the way he took a right turn down the stretch last time in the Jim Dandy. Catholic Boy's post position. Gronkowski still don't know quite to make. There's a lot of things you can pick apart. There's less to pick apart, in my opinion, about Good Magic than about any of the other horses in the field. I mean, almost every one of his races, with the exception of the Preakness, where I don't fault the ride as much as I think he just bounced. He's not a big horse. He ran really hard in the Kentucky Derby, close to the pace. I think he reacted from that in the Preakness. Every other race, I think, would probably win the Travers. So I think he's the worst to beat.
Yeah, and I took Vino Rosso, again, for the reasons I stated earlier, but part of it I liked him in the Jim Dandy, and so I was kind of married. You don't want to jump off on a race where, again, given that Good Magic will take the money, Vino Rosso will offer some odds, and so I was
more
kind of
value,
sad.
definitely.
But Good Magic, clearly, if you were going to define the 3-year-old class at this point, I think virtually everyone would have him number 2. And so he is clearly the logical in there. It's going to be fun. I think it's a fun field with a lot of great storylines, and really looking forward to. You know, you have your fingers crossed that the Triple Crown winner comes, but he's retired. And if that is the scenario, then you hope for this, where it's still a little undefined, and they're all aiming for a race to jump to that next spot on the ladder, and you get a good competitive field, and that's the way it played out.
Just about every top 3-year-old in America, other than the one that's retired now, is right here for the Midsummer Derby.
And before we let you go, give us your impressions of the Triple Crown this year and Justify. I have heard, obviously, when you're up at Saratoga, everybody's into horse racing. There's a lot of horse racing conversation, and during the meet, I've heard discussions, both sides. Justify with the abbreviated campaign, you can't call him great. Justify with the abbreviated campaign, but in the course of the number of days he did it, makes him great. What were your feelings on the Triple Crown this year?
He deserves to be labeled as great simply because he swept the Triple Crown. And we all know historically how difficult it is for any horse to sweep the Triple Crown. He gets extra credit, in my opinion, for doing it with as little background as he had, right? The first horse since Apollo, right, to win the Kentucky Derby, not having run as a 2-year-old. I mean, we know how difficult that has been historically. Not as difficult as it used to be because horses are trained differently nowadays, but he gets some extra credit for that. It's unfortunate that we're not going to get to see him run again, to really be able to place him historically. Right now, on the evidence that I've seen, I don't think he was quite as good a horse as American Pharoah.
Okay.
But obviously, Justify is a very, very talented horse. Unfortunately, the Belmont doesn't leave a lot of people with a good taste in their mouth, the way all the different things transpired in the Belmont Stakes, right? I mean, he got pretty much a cakewalk on the front end in that race. But hey, I mean, he makes his own luck. Justify and his tactical speed. The Derby, no horse should have won the Derby with the pace that he endured. I mean, look right now at the way Promises Fulfilled is running. Okay? And imagine Justify going head-to-head early with Promises Fulfilled in the Kentucky Derby at 1.25 miles, breakneck pace, and still able to win. So.
Yeah, and as I say, doing it in the compressed period of time you did it. I heard a great analogy from somebody on the front side a few weeks ago where they were trying to explain what Justify did to a non-horse racing fan, and the person happened to be a golf fan, and he said, well, imagine this. Somebody goes out for their first golf game and they break the course record, and then they go out for their next golf game and they win the local tournament, and then in the third start they win the local championship. and then starts 4, 5, and 6 in a 6-week period. They win the Masters, the PGA, and the U.S. Open, and that's kind of what he did. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good analogy, and to do it in that compressed amount of time, it was pretty special. And you of course were down there for NBC. We talked about after American Pharoah. I was down on the apron again for Justify, and it just we talk about horse racing and doesn't get the fan base. But boy, American Pharoah, when he came down the stretch and again for Justify, certainly there was a good fan base that appreciated what they were watching.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us will ever experience anything at a racetrack, and maybe I'm being pessimistic when I say this, but like you did in 2015 when American Pharoah hit the wire at the Belmont Stakes.
It was sustained. That was what
37 years of pent-up emotion from people, and it was just one of the most unbelievable sporting events I've ever seen. I'll tell you how loud it was. It was so loud that on the NBC set, right, you had Tom Hammond, me, and Jerry Bailey. And after the race is over, Tom Hammond is supposed to speak like he does, and did. And the crowd noise was so loud, it was coming through my mic and Jerry's mic, and it was distorting Tom's mic. So in the truck, the audio guy had to switch off our microphones so that people could actually understand what Tom Hammond was saying. That's how loud it was. It was incredible.
And again, the American Pharoah was much more sustained. They kept it when he came back and went up the stretch and whatnot. But it was still
special for Justify as well. Maybe not that level, but you can't expect it to be that level.
And the thing about American Pharoah, I also remember too. And again, talking about the fans, I talked about earlier on the show when he had the workout here the morning before the Travers.
I was there.
20,000 people show up for see the horse. Jog around the track one time. Randy, before I let you go, NFL Network, side gig or maybe main gig, or I don't know how you would define it, but I'll have to ask you, as a Jets fan, do I have anything to look forward to this year? I mean, they have 3 great quarterbacks, I think, but I'm just kind of thinking, that just means it's going to be a controversy, and it's not going to work out well.
Boy, they've gone from having, a quarterback problem to now having a glut of quarterbacks with the Jets. Teddy Bridgewater is playing unbelievably, in my opinion, and I think that's such a cool story because he's such a good kid. Yeah. Sam Darnold has done absolutely nothing wrong, which surprises me, honestly, because I thought coming out of USC, too many interceptions, too many fumbles. I thought maybe he could be a touch overrated coming into the NFL. Okay. He's made nothing but good decisions, putting the ball right where it needs to be in every situation. So he's done nothing but impress so far. They've got an interesting decision
to make. Preseason, they play.
A lot of teams would love to have Teddy Bridgewater right now.
But as a long-suffering Jets fan, it seems like every year they've won 6 of the first 8. Hey, and then it's all downhill. Who you tilting towards on top this year?
On top?
Yeah.
Super, you mean?
Yeah,
NFL.
yeah. I mean, if you're, maybe give us 2 or 3 that could battle it out.
Jags look good.
I think the odds are stacked against the Eagles, right? You always got to factor the Patriots in. I'm not sure Brady has as many weapons this year at his disposal, offensively with the receiving core. Now the Brandon Cooks is gone and all that. I mean, still got Gronk, still got Edelman after the first 4 games. You got to expect the Patriots to be there.
Jaguars?
The Jags. Jags have an unbelievable defense, right?
Video guy.
Got a Jags fan back there behind the camera. The Packers, I think, are going to be a better team with Aaron Rodgers obviously healthy for a whole season. I don't know.
It's,
I wish I had a strong opinion.
I'll still root for the Jets. As I say, long-suffering Jets. But I was alive when they had their Super Bowl, so I have that to go back.
So was I, and I was a huge Joe Namath fan.
So was I. I was a quarterback in high school, but you were not allowed to wear the white shoes in high school. So I wanted to, but
I could name almost the entire Jets team in 1968,
Snell,
starting Emerson Boozer, Matt Snell, Don Maynard.
Yeah.
They were good. George Sauer.
George Sauer. Absolutely. And again, Randy, NFL Network after the season. So, in between the Breeders' Cup winning year-end events that you'll be doing. We talked before you came on the air. You're back for the Woodward, and then out to Southern California, Keeneland, and that's
after the Woodward. I go straight to Philadelphia for the Eagles.
Oh, there you go.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They start the season on Thursday.
Very good. All right.
So yeah.
Well, this weekend though, it is NBC tomorrow 4 to 6 with Travers coverage and a couple other stakes races as well. Again, Randy, always appreciate the visit. It is a tradition here on the set the day before the Travers. Thanks a lot. Thanks again to Randy for stopping by, as he does at Friday every year before the Travers. Had a nice conversation earlier in the meet with Todd Pletcher. Always fun to talk to Todd. He's always got a loaded barn. We hit on all of that and much more with Todd Pletcher. Speaking of stakes, a guy who has a lot of horses in this weekend. Happy to be joined this morning by Todd Pletcher on what is certainly a busy week, so we appreciate the visit.
Pleasure.
I'll start right out asking the most important question. Why didn't I play more in the jockey cage?
Tell you what, as badly as our team played, I think you probably want to hide behind the bench.
Yeah, it was kind of a long night as far as the situation with the jockeys, and I knew it was going to be a long night when one of the Ortiz brothers came running down the court, did the behind the back pass, and nailed the
I tell you, some of the jockeys can really play, and I was laughing with someone this morning. When we started the game, we said, okay, we're going to play a zone defense. And then, like in the third quarter, when we were down about 40, a couple of the guys came to the bench and said, I think we need to go to a zone defense. I said, that's what we've been playing for the past 40 minutes. But we're going to make a comeback next year.
Yeah, I think I was the old guy, and so that's why I only got the limited time. But we need the cagey veterans to just keep feeding Jeremiah.
Yes. Yeah, we got to use strength, our size to our advantage, but. We need some new recruits.
All for a good cause, though.
It was, yeah.
It's
always a good time.
Yeah. I was doing a little research last night, a little bio research, and I found it interesting. I think everybody's familiar with the fact that you, along with a lot of other prominent trainers now, went through the Wayne Lucas barn early in your career. But it was also interesting you spent time with Charlie Winningham, and certainly most folks are probably familiar. But if you aren't, you're new to the game, just Google one of the legends of the game. How was your time with Charlie Winningham?
It was a great summer. I spent one summer during my college years working at Hollywood Park for Mr. Whittingham. He was very, very kind to me. He's very generous with his time and his. I tried to ask him as many questions as I could while being the groom, and he was very generous with information and just a great person, great place to work. And actually one of the horses that I groomed was a horse named Peace that won the Cinema Handicap. I think it might have been the first Friday night that they raced at Hollywood Park, and so in the winner's circle there's Clint Eastwood presented the trophy, so I got Mr. Whittingham and winning a graded stake. It was a pretty cool experience.
And you're wearing a sweatshirt, University of Arizona program, and reading the bio, the Winningham time was during your time at Arizona, as were a couple of summers with Wayne Lucas before he went more full-time with Lucas. But those are a couple of powerhouse college internships. The beautiful thing about my summer with Mr. Whittingham is I actually got three college credits for doing an internship working for a legend in the game. So it was great, and working for Wayne was a terrific experience as well. And of course, the University of Arizona program has provided a lot of folks on the front side of tracks around the country, as well as on the training side as well. You and Bob Baffert and whatnot. I think when you were here last year, a couple of years ago, one of your sons was looking. Did he wind up?
No, he ended up going to Texas A&M. I got two sons going to Texas A&M now. One in the animal science program with an equine emphasis, and the other one starting actually next week in the engineering school. So nice. I took him out there. I showed him Arizona. I gave him the red carpet treatment, and we went to an Arizona basketball game when they played Arizona State, blew them out. It was awesome atmosphere, and left there and said, what do you think? And he said, I think I want to go to A&M. So I was like, I can't do any better than that.
You set it up. You teed it up. You talk about Texas, and I know that's where you grew up. Were you based there the entire time you grew up? I knew you graduated from high school there.
Went to high school in San Antonio and spent some of my younger years. I was born in Dallas. My dad was racing at Sunland Park for a long time, so I was in El Paso for a while. So it's kind of different parts of Texas, but for the most part, all of my childhood, I grew up in Texas. Yeah,
the bio mentioned your dad. You were doing some work for him, walking hots and whatnot, Louisiana Downs and Exarban, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Exarban because, again, for folks who aren't familiar, Google it. That prompted me to look back. I certainly remember when they were racing at Exarban, but it was really, for me, it's recent. As recent as the mid-'80s. They were setting handle and attendance records there at Exarban. They've disappeared now. What are your memories of Exarban?
It's one of the strangest things that I've encountered in racing to see, like you say. I mean, if you would have said that Exarban would eventually just shut down, there's no way you could have thought that was possible. At that time, when my dad was racing there. I mean, it was just tremendous attendance, handle, very high quality Midwest summer racing, and it seemed like it was just thriving. And then within a matter of a few years, it was gone.
Yeah, as I say, going back and reading the articles, and of course the Cornhusker, one of the bigger races in the country for years. What was your dad's circuit? You guys were based in Texas, Louisiana, Exarban. You mentioned Sunland. What was his?
So his main circuit ended up kind of being Oaklawn Park. That was his sort of winter place, and then Louisiana Downs during the rest of the year. That was kind of when he stopped training in '85. That was sort of his circuit. But he raced all over the Midwest at Churchill and Keeneland, and actually spent some time in California as well. And so I kind of as a child got exposed to a lot of different racing venues.
I've asked a few of the trainers who have come in here this summer. This question came up with it as I was driving in one morning, because it is, it's a tough job. It's a stressful job. You're taking care of living creatures 24/7, 365. You have to deal with clients and win races and whatnot. So again, it is a difficult job being a horse trainer. But what gets the juices flowing? What do you love about being a horse trainer?
I mean, the racing to me is, I love the horses, and I love that aspect of it, and just developing horses and being around the 2-year-olds especially. But, the competition of racing is what I think makes us all, get up in the morning and do the job that we do. And so, yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the actual racing part of it.
And let's talk a little bit about the racing up here, because weather obviously was the story of the early part of the meet. And as handicappers and fans, it has affected the way we approach the races every day. How does the weather affect you as a trainer?
Well, the toughest thing for us as trainers is trying to get on a reliable training schedule. And, especially at Saratoga, you have a lot of young horses. And so trying to get their gate schooling in, trying to make sure that they're ready to go first time out, is you're really on a tight schedule here. And sometimes the rain can just make the simple things more difficult, but trying to juggle their schedules and that sort of thing is the most difficult part.
We were talking before we went on the air, and I said I wanted to touch on a horse that folks are obviously familiar with from the early part of the season. Get a little update on Audible.
Actually, I spoke to Elliot Walden a couple of days ago, and he sent me some photos of him. The horse looks fantastic. He's really filled out, put on some weight. He's in training at WinStar, and actually when I'm at Keeneland for the September sale, I'm going to go out and visit him, and Elliot and I are going to talk about a game plan of when he's going to come in, but it sounds like sometime around the 15th of September.
So he'll come to you in New York?
I think he'll come to Belmont is the most likely scenario. That's one of the things that we're going to talk about when we see him there is, he's probably not going to be ready to run until the Gulfstream meet, and if things were to go perfectly and we could get a race into him maybe before the Pegasus, we know he likes Gulfstream, so that's sort of what we're thinking. And so we'll just decide whether he's going to come to Belmont and then go to Florida, or maybe just go straight to Florida. But we'll sort that out in the next couple of weeks.
And you trained down at the Palm Beach Downs facility and noticed a few horses have come up from Palm Beach Downs to race up here. How many horses do you have down there now?
We kept about 40 down there, and this is the first year that we've stayed year-round in Florida. And it's just last year we brought some horses from Florida up to Monmouth and stayed there for a couple months, and then we were back to Florida right after Labor Day and decided to give it a try. And we're trying to mainly just bring in some younger horses, get them ready, and if they look like they're ready to come up north, then we've done that. But it's I think Gulfstream's program is improving. It's got a lot of 2-year-old races, which helps us try to spread them out and get them started.
Palm Beach Downs, and of course other venues. You have some horses. Talk a little bit about your staff, because I know that's important. So take a moment to give a shout out to the staff.
Yeah, no, we've got a great staff. Tristan Berry's my assistant here at Saratoga, so he's pretty much at Saratoga about 6 months out of the year, and at Palm Beach Downs the other 6 months. And I've got Byron Hughes at Belmont. He stays at Belmont year round, and then Anthony Shimetta, who's our assistant currently in Florida, used to be Florida and Monmouth, and now he's stayed in Florida year-round. So all those guys have been with us for a long time, and they do a great job and deserve a lot of the credit for the success that we.
You talk about being up here 6 months out of the year, so you take advantage of the Saratoga facility for the entire time it's open.
We pretty much hit here right at the 1st of May, and then we're looking to kind of close it down around the 1st of November. But sometimes we stay a little bit longer than that, depending on how the weather's going. But it's a terrific place to train, and a lot of good horses have spent their early training days here at Saratoga.
7 times an Eclipse Award winner, 13 times the title up here at Saratoga. First one in 1998. Just give us your feelings of Saratoga. I always say the beauty of Saratoga is not just the racetrack and the racing, but outside the fences. The community is so plugged in. It's got to be fun to win in front of the fans who are so knowledgeable up here.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's the whole community loves racing here, and part of the favorite time of the year for us, me and my family, is as soon as the kids get out of school at the end of June, we come down here and you get to kind of spend 3 or 4 weeks before the meet starts and, train horses, but also enjoy the area, which is, it's a beautiful area. So, Saratoga, we always look forward to.
Yeah, it seems like more and more trainers are making this kind of a second home, second kind of a destination. Just wanted to touch on also looking through the bio information. I'm sure you do because it's on your website. Remember your first winner?
Yeah, it was a Majestic number at Gulfstream Park.
And
I don't remember the exact date.
I will ask you this. Do you remember who was riding?
Yeah, Jerry Bailey. Yeah, it's funny. My son Peyton went to Monmouth one day this summer with some of his buddies, and he went through the gift shop, and there was an actual photo of Majestic numbers first, and it says trainer's first win, and so he bought it. And when Jerry Bailey was out at the barn, he got him to autograph it. So, yeah. And I can't remember exactly, but a client of mine named another horse Majestic number. And that horse, I think, was like maybe our 3,000th first win or something like that. Yeah, it was.
Was that a plan?
Yeah, he named him intentionally,
funny.
because of the Phillies' first win. But yeah, that was kind of cool.
And it was also interesting for me, being a guy following New York racing for years and years. That was start number 2. So already early in your career, you were getting them ready to go very early in their career. But start number 1, I had it written down, ran 6th in a field of 10 at 58 to 1. Do you remember who was riding that day?
I don't remember. Was the horse Paramount? Was that the horse?
No. I'm talking about Majestic number in the career
debut.
Oh,
no. That actually someone else trained her for a career debut. So that was her first start for us.
Okay.
And so she was a maiden 75 at Gulfstream, and she'd been training well. We were optimistic, and she ended up coming back and winning her next start in the allowance race.
Yeah,
so
Jerry Bailey, but Eddie Maple was up
Eddie Maple was on really
for the first start. So that was kind of a blast from the past as well. And just before we get into some of the races tomorrow, I wanted to ask one more question because it's another thing I've asked a lot of the trainers here at this meet. As folks look through the past performances, they'll see workouts for horses across the street at Oklahoma and workouts on the main track. How do you decide? How do you decide where the workout is going to go for a horse?
Well, that's actually a really good question. And at this meet, kind of what we were talking about earlier, the weather has affected that. And, especially when it rains during the races, the main track's going to get more saturated than, say, the Oklahoma track, which they can protect, seal, and leave it sealed, throughout the day. And sometimes that track will be better the next day after a rain because it hasn't the rain hasn't penetrated it all through the races. So some of that just depends. Sometimes we'll make a decision. The Oklahoma track is in better shape today. Let's go there. And we like to work on the main track when we can because this is where they're going to run and it's more convenient for us having horses stabled on the harness track and the Oklahoma side. But it's usually just which one we feel like is in the best condition.
You ever get them out here on Clare Court?
We do train a few on Clare Court. It's usually some of the more aggressive ones that seem to relax a little more staying off the main track, but we don't do any breezing, obviously. But
yeah, that seems to be what everybody says. It's more of a mental thing.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit different.
It's funny how some horses, they associate going to the track with competitive racing, and they get a little more ambitious. And when you train them on a different area like that, they'll kind of take a deep breath.
Let's get to some of the action. You've got some nice runners coming in on Saturday, and certainly the one we want to touch on first up is Vino Rosso in the Travers. We're going to take a look at the stretch run to the Jim Dandy. Tenfold is going to win, Flame Away second, but Vino Rosso, who was out of it early in about the last 150 yards, kind of figured it out and really made a nice late run. I liked him that day because I was really impressed with the Wood Memorial win earlier this year. That was one of the better performances, I thought, by a 3-year-old. I saw you and John Velasquez talking after this Jim Dandy performance. What did he tell you about how he handled the track?
Well, actually, we likened it a lot to a couple of his races at Tampa, except in this particular race, in the Jim Dandy, he just got so far back very early on, and so I was concerned going around the first turn that he'd already kind of put himself out of position. and then down the backside he kind of crept his way up back into a reasonably good spot, and by the time he got to the half-mile pole, he backed up again and kind of lost the position he'd made up. So, he's a horse that I think has more talent than we've seen at times. He's been a little bit inconsistent, sometimes a little bit unfocused, and this particular day he didn't run the far turn very well, and that's kind of what he did to us at Tampa a couple times. So, we're going to make a couple of adjustments with his shoes and some different things like that hopefully gives him a little better traction around the turn, and we just need him to put himself in a position that allows his closing kick to potentially get him there, which didn't happen in the Jim Dandy.
Yeah, he certainly made a really nice late run, as we saw there. Mile and a quarter, obviously, is the question mark. Ran ninth in the Derby, but a decent fourth. Mile and a half in the Belmont, so the distance a concern?
No, actually, I really believe he wants a mile and a quarter, and the Derby, I think, was a throw-out for him. I don't think he cared for the slop that day. At the end of the race, I think he was ninth, beating 10 lengths. It wasn't like he ran absolutely horribly, but and I think he ran very well in the Belmont. At the half-mile pole, Johnny made a decision in the Belmont, like, if there's any chance to win, I got to go try to get justified now. And I think had he waited and ridden to be second, he might have been second, but of course we always want to win, and so he made that move, and I think it compromised him a little bit from the eighth pole to the wire, but I've never felt like a mile and a quarter is an issue for him.
All right, let's move to a little earlier on the card. High Happy, really nice turf runner that you have, 8 wins and 15 career starts. We're going to go back to one of those wins, the Man of War down at Belmont, middle of May. Subsequently ran a close-up third in the Manhattan, but last time up here at Saratoga, 6th in the Bowling Green. But again, with the weather, that was on a soft turf course. Do you think that was why we saw the performance in the Bowling Green, expecting obviously a better performance on Saturday?
We are expecting a better performance, and I think if the next couple of days cooperate and the weather continues to stay good, that we should have a firmer turf course. He did not care for the soft ground last time at all, and it was unlike him not to show up and put forth a good effort. So I think he'll hopefully do that again, and he's a really classy horse, and I think the mile and a half suits him perfectly. We just hope to get the ground that he likes.
Yeah, we saw a nice gutsy run there in the Man of War, nice late runs that High Happy got up to win that one, and again, that's going 3 starts back, so we'll see what the surface difference between the last time makes on Saturday. Also wanted to go and take a look at Ivy Bell. We're going to go back and look at the Ogden Phipps. This is a pretty nice performance behind a really talented Abel Tasman. This is back on June 9th. Abel Tasman, the number 6 horse, Ivy Bell, the number 2 horse. Subsequent to that performance, a 4th place finish up here at Saratoga in the Shoe V. Both the Phipps was at a mile and a 16th, and the last time in the Shoe V, a mile and an 8th. A little longer than we'll get on Saturday at the 7 furlongs. You looking for a move forward on the cutback?
I think the cutback is what she's looking for, and she fooled us a little bit in her training and gave us the indication that she might handle a little further, and she certainly didn't run badly. I mean, Abel Tasman was just brilliant in the Phipps, and she ran a good race to be second, but the winner was awfully good that day, and then she just, I think the mile and an 8th was just a little too far in the Shoe V, but we felt like the Ballerina was our goal for the summer, and being a grade 1 at 7/8, we felt like the best way to get her there was to back her up from a long race to a shorter race, and hopefully it turns out to be right. She's training well. She, if she can put herself in a good position early and maybe get a good pace set up, I think we'll see an improved race from her this time. As
handicappers, we often like that, the cutback from 2 turns to a sprint. As a trainer, is that something you look at too?
Yeah, definitely, and we had the option of running in the, I think it was the honorable miss earlier, and we just felt like 6 was maybe a little too short. What's our best way to get to the Ballerina? And we felt like 2 routes backing up to a 7/8 would maybe put her on her A game.
Here's one I really want to ask you about. In the Alan Jerkins, Guido, who so far has been a turf performer, sent Guido over to Royal Ascot earlier this summer. Ran a good race there, finished 6th, but in a big field and a nice late run. Subsequently up here in the Hall of Fame, led most of the way around and wound up 4th. That was a mile and a 16th. It was on the grass, as I say. Guido has been on the grass throughout the career. So I'm just curious, the Alan Jerkins 7 furlongs on the main track sprinting, what's the game plan? And again, as we watched the Paradise Creek, which was 3 races back, it's a turf race, but it was a nice late run to get up by a neck. Guido's going to be the number 5 horse in the Paradise Creek. But what's the game plan on Saturday with the moving surface?
Well, you know, we've had in the back of our minds possibly trying him on the dirt. You know, he's a son of Frankel, but he's out of an unbridled song mare. He's always trained well on the dirt. The thing about him is you know, he's probably a horse that's really best at like 7/8 on the grass, and there's not that many options for you know, that type of race. And he can be, as we saw in the Hall of Fame, he can be a little bit keen and headstrong, and he was a little bit ranked that day, which, you know, compromised his ability to finish. So backing up to 7/8 on the dirt, you can just kind of let him run freely. And we figured if we're going to give it a try, we might as well give it a try in a meaningful race. It's a Grade 1 prestigious race. If he were to do well, it would make him a stallion.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're looking at. And you know, it is an experiment. And there's some very talented horses in here and plenty of speed. But, you know, I like the fact that he drew towards the outside. Hopefully, keep his face clean and you know, give it a whirl.
That's some real intrigue to that Alan Jerkins. All right, just want to touch on a couple on Friday, New York Showcase Day, and I'll get your opinion because you're New York raced for a long time. How about the New York bred program, particularly over the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, no, it's been incredible, you know, and to have the first 2 finishers in the Whitney both be New York breds, it's a high quality program, and you know, you just see consistently really not only good New York breds, but these horses are showing that they're capable of winning at any level.
Yeah, it's been fun at the sales as well. But Friday is New York Showcase Day here. The Albany for 3-year-olds. You have a couple in there for Barry Schwartz. Singapore Trader comes off a big maiden win over the track, a big maiden win. And Speak hasn't missed an exacta since the career debut. The last 4 starts, either first or second. What are your thoughts on Singapore Trader and Speak in the Albany?
Well, I think the mile and an 8 suits them both, and they're both coming off of decent races here. So it's you know, it's not a huge field, and we just felt like both horses are coming into the race well, and it's time to give them both a chance. And it's a good purse and a good opportunity, and so hopefully they can step up their game just to that next level.
$250,000 up for grabs, $200,000 in the funny side, and we're going to pull up the Rockville Center and watch La Fuerza.
La Fuerza, yeah.
Fuerza. Win start number 2, win number 2. So 2 for 2 right now, and they were both by daylight margins. As folks will see, we're looking at a win of over 4 lengths in here. The first win was over 7 lengths. So by daylight, as a buyer guy, though, probably has to step it up a little bit number-wise. But given the daylight wins, I don't think we know what the top is for this one. What are your thoughts on La Fuerza for the funny side on Friday?
Well, he's you know, both of his first 2 starts have been quite good, and we like the way he trained before his debut. We expected him to come out and run well, and you know, he's trained well since then. I think you know, favorable draw outside. The only thing he hasn't done really well in his first 2 starts is break sharply. So hopefully he gets away a little cleaner, and you know, this will be a tougher race than what he's been running in. But you know, I think with those 2 races under his belt and some subsequent good breezes, he should be hopefully ready to improve again. Is
there anything you can do for that? I mean, you just take him to the gate and try to...
Yeah, it really hasn't been a behavioral issue or anything. He's just been kind of a half step slow pushing out of there. I think, you know, with 2 races under his belt, we should see a cleaner break.
And finally, I just wanted to touch on today, because I always like to get a little info on the first-time starters. You have a first-time starter in race number 5 today, State-Bred Maidens, going a 1/16 on the grass. You have good wheels in for Mike Rapoli, and I looked up some of the information. Sibling over-negotiate, won the career debut. Sprinting on dirt, though. This one's going long on turf, but good wheels, the first-time starter by Scat Daddy. What are your thoughts this afternoon?
I think he's the type that might need the experience. We're going to go ahead and debut him with blinkers, which we felt like we got an improved breeze last time with first time wearing them. But you know, he's a big, rangy colt, starting him out at a 1/16, and he gives me the impression he might need to see it once before he understands what it's all about. But hopefully he'll maybe surprise us and show us a little more. But you know, I talked to Rapoli about it and said, you know, we've trained, and now we might need this race to kind of get him to where we need to be, and so let's go ahead and do that. Hopefully he'll surprise us and run a little better than expected, and if nothing else, the experience should help him next time.
That works out for some horses, though. You can just see in the past performances. You have that 5th place finish, and then the next start a win and another win. And it's just kind of they benefit from the education.
There's sometimes there's just no substitute for a race, and you can train and train and train and train. They're still going to need a race to really figure it all out, and that's kind of where we feel like we are with him.
All right, Todd, again, we appreciate the visit. We know how busy you are in the mornings and certainly this week as well. We wish you good luck going forward this afternoon. Friday, a New York Showcase Day, and, of course, Saturday with the Travers and the Undercard Stakes. Good luck with Vino Rosso and the meet going forward.
Thank you.
It was a busy morning one morning when the Capital OTB crew went down the road a little bit to take advantage of the gumbo cookout down by Eric Guillot's barn. And while we were there, Dale Romans pulled up in his golf cart, and we said, you know what, we got to get these two on. So up next, a few minutes from one of our more popular interviews this season, Dale Romans and Eric Guillot. Welcome back to Racing Across America on a Wednesday morning as we kick off Travers Week. Dale Romans with an entrant in the Travers. We'll talk about that a little bit, but looking forward to this segment for the past couple of days. We came up with the idea over at the Jambalaya Cookout put on by the Guillot boys. Eric Guillot, Dale Romans, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Happy to have you swing by. And as I say, we came up with this idea as Dale came over and had some jambalaya, and you and your brother
had some jambalaya.
I was going to say, hey, Dale, you said you only had one bowl.
Right? Yeah, wait. Had one bowl 4 times. But listen, anybody can eat 4 bowls of my brother's jambalaya and that quiver and not let their liver quiver. I mean, he's my hero. Next to Muhammad Ali, he's got to be the greatest man out of Louisville, right? I could eat that 4 bowls in a row and not even have heartburn.
I think we have a shot of the jambalaya. I took a shot of the jambalaya and the pot. Is this a family recipe?
Nah, it's a family recipe. A family recipe in Louisiana is alcohol.
You know, how many times have I been lost for words sitting at this desk? I don't think I'll have to say anything. We talked about you not being able to get anything in. I might just sit here and be quiet.
Oh, look, you got pictures of the jambalaya.
Hey, now who was it for?
That's already 200 people ate that.
But when Tammy asked, I told her it was only one bowl.
Yeah, it was one bowl.
I just refilled it 4 times.
Yeah, exactly.
But a couple of years ago, you were out here right behind us. It was very convenient for the gumbo, right out here behind us.
Yeah.
Now we had to get in the cart and go down the lane a little bit. I had a friend of mine say if he has etouffee at some point, she wants to be alerted. Is that going to be on the menu?
Actually, you know what? That's Dale's favorite, is etouffee. Right. And there's a little hole-in-the-wall place in Brobridge, actually in Cecilia, called Poche's, and he told me that Dale told me, he said I'd go to Don's, get the boudin, then go straight to Poche's and get the etouffee. It is good.
I ate lunch twice in 15 minutes in Lafayette one day. I can't go past Don's Specialty Meats, and then 15 miles down the road was Poche's. I had to pull over and eat.
But speaking of that, I noticed there's no food for us trainer. I don't see the sign like that. This is what it. Don't feed the trainers on this set. What's going on? I mean, we should have some food.
We'll come up with something.
None of that Jacob and Anthony thing. That was Mark's thing, right? Where they give it the appetizer.
You do understand why Eric is so important to me right now in my career, that he stays good and healthy and in the game. If anything ever happens to him, I'll be the craziest trainer on the backside.
Yeah, very good, very good. And we talked the other day when we were over there, and I said, I just would have to introduce you guys, and then I would leave the set. But I called up the FCC in the meantime, and they said, no.
You don't have a delay button. They said no delay button. But we're gonna have our own show one of these days. We want to make that announcement. It'll be the Hillbilly and Cajun show.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I have to stay because I'm like the maestro, with the symphony. They don't play right, but if the maestro's up there, it's a beautiful symphony. So I'm here to make a beautiful symphony.
Well, that's good. You're doing well.
I'm trying anyway.
We'll keep you.
Want to talk a little bit about, you've got one of the horses of the meet, actually. Social media was all over Southern Phantom, and I think we have a shot. And our friend Tim Wilkin, I pulled it from his Twitter feed, in fact.
That's your friend.
Southern Phantom, who has the crazy, freaky kind of white face. Born that way, I guess. He's got his own Facebook page also.
Yeah, look like he's been smoking weed. Look at him. I got his eye all shut right there on that thing. What's going on with that? Don't look. He got his eye all closed up. Yeah, he's pretty popular. Probably more popular than HIV in the late '80s.
Yeah. You get visitors come over and kind of want to see the horse.
Oh yeah, all the time. There's people. Daily. There's really. I started charging $5 for the selfies, but kind of felt bad for the fans. So there's so many of them. Might be the most money he makes.
Where's he running next?
Well, you did, Dale. You see, you don't want me to talk about the other thing, but you're gonna Don't pump the dog's cage.
I just wonder where he's running.
In the hopeful.
Oh, we got
That's a
it.
maiden.
We have his last race. He ran third in here. This is back on August 11th.
Right.
He's going to be the 1A. Southern Phantom runs third. This was the second start of the meet. The first start ran fifth, but this was an improved performance. I think you're thinking he's sitting on a nice
Yeah,
race.
my partner, he's like Babe Ruth. When he points to the fence with his baseball bat, he's not looking for a double. So we're going to try him in the hopeful. Hopefully he can run third. Got the whole family. So we'll see. Does he belong there? Probably not, but why not? Take a chance.
All right. Southern.
I would like to say be my first graded with a maiden. Like to say be my second graded with a maiden. Like to say be my third graded with it. That should be my fourth. So might as well take a shot.
And of course, remember just 3 or 4 years back, won the Whitney with Marino, the Jim Dandy with Leia Band. So certainly
And
a
the
nice
maiden.
stakes record up here at Saratoga.
Yeah,
Man was
and
a
2
maiden,
inches
right?
the Travers beat was crazy. Huh?
Lead Man was a maiden, right?
Yeah, he was a maiden.
We weren't going to bring up that, Travers. Just relax on that.
Well, then as long as we don't get to talk about Keen Eyes.
Let's switch and talk a little Travers this year with King Zachary. Happy with the post position?
Yeah, 7's a great spot. I mean, a mile and a quarter. As long as you're not on the inside or outside, I'm happy. I just like horses on both sides of mine when they leave there.
I should ask
I
you.
agree.
How's your horse doing?
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. I love when everybody asks,
How's he
no,
doing?
he's not doing that good.
I'm
not
not
doing
even
that
a $1
good.
million grade one, some midsummer derby, and he's not doing very well.
Yeah.
That's Andy Sterling. Come on now, you're better than that.
We're going to take a look at King Zachary winning the Matt win. This was a couple of starts back. King Zachary's going to be the number 4 horse here. Wins by a chart margin, just under 5 lengths. Subsequently came back in the Indiana Derby and ran 4th. What was the story in the Indiana Derby?
I shipped 2 times he's been off form, if you look at his chart, that he ran subpar races, and both times I shipped him in late. I don't know what it has to do with it, but he also bled in the Indiana Derby, and that won't happen this time. He's gonna run a big
Where's
effort.
he at in this
He's
race?
laying third right here.
Yeah, he's the 4 here.
Four
This
horse,
is the
the
Matt
12
win
to
down
1.
at Churchill. As I say, 2 races back.
And Bob, somebody had the 1 to 2 shot in there.
It's
I
a
can't
2-turn
remember the
race
guy's
or
name.
1-turn race?
2-turn race.
And went off.
We're on the lead with the 6th
Who's
horse.
riding him?
Robbie Alvarado, Cajun.
Oh,
you can't
yeah.
recognize your people?
Well, I'm going to say like Jacob used to say, maybe you next time tell him to get down a little bit lower. You know what I mean? He's blocking the wind like he told about Corey.
We're on the lead, too, so we end up running 1-2 in here. That's Tiz Mischief on the lead.
Shit, he made a big move right here, huh?
Yeah, he did. And then he just took off.
Yeah, nice performance there. And again, you're happy with the post position, and obviously, nice bullet workout on the 19th. So he is coming
He's come
into
up
the
here
race.
and done well. We brought him up right after the Indiana Derby because didn't want to have to ship on top of a race again. So we've been up here for a month, and he's trained well. Tammy's worked him every work, and he's just gotten better and better. He's a classic. He's just waiting for his breakthrough race, and maybe the Travers will be it. It's a good field, though. A good bunch of horses, top to bottom. You got the filly coming in there. I think that's big a mark.
You got Black Magic. I mean, Good Magic. But it'll be Black Magic by Saturday.
good magic. And Mark, I like that move with Mark Cassie bringing the filly in the race.
Yeah.
Right, sticking outside the box. I mean, not many people do that anymore. You're so scrutinized with every single move you make, and she can really run.
Yeah,
she might expose the whole 3-year-old crop if she
Yeah,
wins.
I agree. She's got a shot.
You say it's a good field. It was a good field a few years ago when American Pharoah was in, too.
Yeah, it was a good field. Good day that day.
Yeah.
That day when Keen Ice beat American Pharoah, we watched it back in. It was a funny thing because I was supposed to be here by myself, and the 2 kids were in different parts of the country. When one called and said, "Hey, it worked out where I can come in," and another one called, and then Tammy showed up, and we all ended up being there watching in the racing office, and that horse hit the
So
wire.
the Clampets were in town, basically. What it said. The Clampets were in town.
Basically, we went to a cement pond and came to the races, and I picked Tammy up in the racing office and had her under my arm like a football and ran all the way to the winner's circle before I realized I was about to have a heart attack. And I had to put her down.
Yeah. So a nice Grade 1 win up here. And, of course, as I say, Marino with the Grade 1 win at Saratoga. It's always nice to win a Grade 1 at Saratoga.
Yeah, it's nice to win at Saratoga, period.
And you came up here pretty early this year. Are you kind of Saratoga-based now in the
Well,
summertime?
that's
Is
I
that
plan on staying year round. It depends how many times I have to wear long pants this winter. But I already got quite a few people trying to teach me about how to be winterized. So I'm gonna try this winter, see how it works out. Go to Belmont back and forth, stay here year round in Saratoga, go back and forth. And if it's too brutal, I'm gonna move back to California. I didn't like Florida. So.
Well, I'm setting it over and under January 15th. I see him at Gulfstream Park. Yeah.
Give us your if you're now based up here. Give us your feeling of Saratoga, just in general, the community. Oh, what's your favorite restaurant?
Oh, my favorite, the Prime is my favorite for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. I like that Sunday buffets they got, the new Sunday buffets they got. Give it to me and he'll be like a coupon for that.
We'll work on it.
Right.
But I like the Prime because it's very seldom you get a place that has quality food and quality service, and I think both the staff
Yeah,
and
you
the
sit
food
outside
is,
there when the weather's good. It's
yeah, when the
nothing
weather's
better.
good out back, it's pretty
There's
nice.
so many good places here.
There
This
is,
is-
yeah,
we've
this
we've
place
made
is-
a vacation of it this year too. This town's been hopping. And we've been going downtown almost every night, sitting out there and watching
No, I don't go downtown
people
at all.
watching it.
What?
But there's good restaurants everywhere. State Salt and Char, 15 Church, R&R.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to open up a little bit there.
Actually, probably my favorite is the hot dogs with the meat chili at Stewart's for lunch.
You can't beat Stewart's.
You can't beat Stewart's. Stewart's the best thing going here. Might be moving
Stewart's is reason enough to live here.
Yeah, it's like a,
It's the ice cream eating contest.
Ice
is
cream,
today.
yeah, the hot dogs, everything.
yeah,
they
they're
got.
good.
Wanted to hit on another potential stakes runner over the weekend. We'll go back to the Amsterdam. Look at promises fulfilled. The number 2 horse in here. Game plan the Jerkins this weekend.
The Jerkins, we'll run 2 in there, him and 7 Trumpets. But yeah, he's a fast horse. I mean, I've never had a horse go 43 2 times in a row and just keep right on going.
Yeah, and here in the Amsterdam again, he's the 2 horse and wins off by over 3 lengths as the second choice over Engage. So this was a pretty good performance, and it's always a bonus to have a race and a win over the track.
Look at Stride. He's more efficient than Santa Claus on Christmas Eve.
He's a good horse. He's a son of Shackelford, one of my all-time favorites. And
Who had that horse?
somebody did a really good job with him. Whoever had him did a great job with
Thing
him.
used to wash out every day.
And run fast. But he's a fast horse, and he just keeps getting better and better. And he's came back and had a good work the other morning. He's trained well over the track. It's a little bit of a quick turnaround, but I think he's the type horse can do it.
And 7 Trumpets for West Point.
7 Trumpets for West Point's doing unbelievable. It's the race at Belmont last time he was second. It just seems like the light switch went on. He's come up here and worked. He worked 58 and 2 the other morning over here like it was nothing. And Tammy didn't pull him up till he went all the way around again.
Yeah, the horse he finished behind last time kind of freaked in that
Yeah,
race.
freaking fire. Well, he's back in there with us, and he'll be tough too. That's a good race. That's a heck of a card for Saturday.
Yeah, no, it's a big card.
The whole racing world will be watching Saturday.
I should ask you too, speaking of West Point, but also our friend Roddy Vellante and Rick Pitino, how Coach Rock's got the Alabama.
She came out of it in good shape. She's had a good year, and we'll probably give her a little break and bring her back as an older mare next year. I think she's just primed to get better and better as she gets older.
Yeah, she certainly down in Florida early this year when we were down
Yeah,
there.
she's one filly away from 3 grade 2,
Yeah.
so which would be nice. Red Ruby beat up on her a couple of times, but I think she's as good as there is in the country.
Yeah, no, I agree. She had a nice season. So
Why
look
wasn't
forward
she in
to her next
Alabama?
year.
It was-
She cracked her splint bone.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she's out for a little while. She'll be back though.
I wanted to touch on one more horse and just get an update because I think you have a nice, promising 3-year-old in Mr. Freeze. We're going to pull up the West Virginia Derby from the 4th of this month. Mr. Freeze is going to be the number 8 horse. Wins off by 8 lengths. This was the 3rd win in 4 career starts. Had finished 2nd in the Iowa Derby just prior to that, an allowance and a maiden win to start the career off. But Mr. Freeze certainly looked pretty good a couple of weeks ago in the West Virginia Derby. What's up next for Mr. Freeze?
He'll go Pennsylvania Derby in late September, but yeah, this horse just has gotten better and better and better as he's gotten older. He could be easily 4 for 4. He got a little confused in Iowa, I think, and didn't figure out to get started running on the 8th pole and re-broke and came back for a good second.
Oh, yeah.
And he was hooked every jump by some good horses. I mean, the horse that hooked him all the way around, it was a horse coming off the win in the Iowa Derby. And he ran fast, and I came close to bringing him up to the Travers. But it was just
Yeah, he looked good there.
he looked good there, but
Yeah.
it's such a tight window for the turnaround, and you got a $1 million grade 1 now sitting at 4 weeks. It'd be 5 weeks between races, and he'll be primed and ready.
He's training down at Churchill.
He is. He's come back. He's had 1 breeze since the race, and it was a good, easy half mile. He's the type of horse will let you do whatever you want with him. He'll go as fast as you want in the morning or as slow as you want. And he's just gotten really, really good.
And I also want to mention, because when we talked to you last year, you had the same situation with Ellis. You had some nice 2-year-olds that started and won down at Ellis. And I saw the other day a horse called Everfast, first-time starter for Calumet, won down there. So you've been using Ellis for some
Oh,
of the
Ellis
2-year-olds.
is, but the problem is everybody else started doing it too. It might be as tough down there as it is up here to win a maiden 2-year-old race. Now we've run a couple of good ones over there. Everlast is the one. He ran a big race. Came from out of it and came close and ran down a good Asmussen 2-year-old. He's lighting it up over there with the babies. And whenever you can run him down with a baby, you probably got a pretty good one. He'll go back into Iroquois.
Very good. And hopeful for
for the maiden.
Southern Phantom.
Yeah, not anything else.
Never count out occasion.
Right, that's right.
All right.
Talk a little bit about that. Your start down in Louisiana. How did you get into the training game?
Well, my great uncle Poufette Del Cambre, my sister went to the state library a few years back, and she pulls off owned the racetrack in 1894 in my hometown, Iberia, on the corner of Lewis and Main Street. And I got a picture on my phone, and it's from the state library, and it's a tower just like the Whitney Tower. The grandstand is just one tower thing. So in Louisiana, it's in our blood. I mean, Tammy can vouch for that. You think about it. I mean, it's a little state of 3 million people. We used to have 5 recognized tracks. Still got 4 when Jefferson shut down. Back when I grew up as a teenager, I had horses all my life since I'm 2 years old. I've done anything from reining, cutting, horse shows, trail ride. We used to take the same horse. There were 6 match race places in a 30-mile radius of where I was from. And we'd take the same horse, and we'd horse show him Friday night, trail ride him all day Saturday, freshen him up, hop him, put some jugs in him, and give him and match race him on 10 o'clock Sunday morning. So I'm like that farmer's insurance. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. So when I moved to California, I was 20 years old. Of course, the first few years, 3 or 4 years, it was just like straight from Louisiana. I just was enjoying the scenery, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I had fun. So I started missing my horse dream. When I took the test and started at St. Louis Ray and over there to get my trainer license, I didn't work for one of the big guys. I was like, there's only 3 trainers under the age of 30, me, Ron Ellis, and Bob Hetz Jr. And they actually made me run at the fairs before I could sign a horse at Hollywood's Del Mar at Santa Anita, follow the fair circuit, which was a trip in its own right. So it I've been in California. I was in California 30-something years, for a long time before I moved in. We came to Saratoga by accident when we just Del Mar put in the poly track in Santa Anita. It was so horrible and breaking. I had the 2 good fillies that same crop out of a dozen horses. I had Champagne d'Oro and Mi Sueño, the filly that won the Del Mar debutante. So it wasn't safe to train on, so we wanted to come here, and we fell in love with it. Then we started shipping across the country just for the summertime, and it got so expensive and a pain in the butt to be 5 days on the road that we decided to come back east. So that's kind of how we got here.
And now here.
And we just love it here because then I just want to make this home,
Well, we'll be looking for you in the off season at Stewart's.
It'll be a little more colorful around here.
Yeah, exactly.
For some reason, Cajuns and hillbillies get along well. So.
Yeah. As I say, when we were down at the Jambalaya Cookout and watching you two, we thought, hey, let's get them in here for a segment. Certainly appreciate it this morning. Good luck in the Hopeful. Good luck in the Travers and the Jerkins and the rest of the meet as well.
A meal ticket.
I told him that was the other show, wasn't it?
It is the other show.
Let's bring Mark back. Hey, let's change the sign from bringing Rick back. Let's bring Mark back.
I'm getting thrown off my own show. Dale Romans, Eric Guillot, appreciate the visit.
All right, guys.
Can't get any better than Romans and Guillot, so we appreciate their stopping by for kind of a fun duo here on the OTB set. Speaking of a fun duo, if you're a player, here are 2 guys that we plug in every year on Loose on the Lead, and Steve Bick and I have a great conversation about playing. Duke and Paul Matisse, 2 of the bigger players in the country, 2 of the more successful contest players. Duke and Paul up next.
We're back on Loose on the Lead, always one of our special and most favored episodes of the summer when the Matisse brothers can join us. And Duke, the expiry date we've been reached on Duke, who's going to head back to California soon. Welcome, Duke and Paul Matisse.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
Steph,
as
Steve,
always.
how you doing?
Steph.
We're good, and some of you that we're following on Twitter, you can follow both Duke and Paul. And Paul heralded his arrival here by remembering back to last year's visit when we discussed picking blueberries up there by Schuylerville. Yeah. But I went a little big. I went for melons. I went melon. Remember, you're a melon.
For the melon turf course.
But I'm bummed. There you go. Exactly. Which by the way, yesterday that 11th should have been taken off at the beginning of the day. And frankly, the clods that were being thrown up, the course took a hit yesterday, and everybody understands we want to run the grass races, but you can't do it when you've got another 3 weeks of racing here. You can't tear the thing up to shreds, and people have to adjust. You've got to just do what you can when they come off the turf.
Yeah, without a doubt. The thing to remember about we were on the mill and turf to start with, the way it's been playing, I think, is the most important story. About the turf, it's favored the outside speed for most of the meet. So there's still hope to make some money off of that, I think, in this meet. I think that's probably the best angle, when you say, of the...
I think it got worse yesterday because the horse in the sprint was about in the 10 path down the stretch. So.
All the horses on the inside are at a disadvantage on the mill and turf. So if you go back and watch some replays for the rest of the meet, keep that in mind.
We're at the halfway point, 20 cards in the book and 20 starting today to get to Labor Day. How about expanding on that in terms of the first half? It sure feels like the general serious playing population have struggled a little bit. I don't hear a lot of people crowing how they're crushing the meet.
Yeah, there haven't been a lot of opportunities. I don't think it's just been difficult. You have so many off the turf races and a lot of 2-year-old races, and Todd's not winning any, and Chad's not winning too many. So it's not the normal Saratoga, that's for sure.
Well, the thing about Saratoga, I say this every year. When you come to Saratoga, it's almost like the beginning of the season. Everybody argues with me that every time, but then you get here and it's completely different than anything that's happened at Churchill and anything that's happened at Belmont. And I always tell everybody to be patient and pick your spots here early in the meet. But you just get up here and the excitement is, just
overwhelms
you. Your Twitter, Facebook friend Battler, he's 99% of the time he talks about nonsense. But the one expression that he has is that you can't lose your composure when you're gambling. And
why?
And that's the really, it's so important up here that not to do that. And I see it, time and time again. My son, he's had a horrible meet, and he's already packed it in and wants to quit. And so, it's an easy thing to do, but you have to, try your best not to fall for all the hoopla that goes with the beginning of the Saratoga meet.
As we enter the second half, you talk about replays. There's been certainly portions of the meet and certain periods where we've had some unique circumstances, including that handful of days about a week and a half ago, give or take, where we were getting kind of that balcony, the Belmont balcony, horses rallying from off the pace and outside, something we rarely see here. And when you talk about the winners coming from certain places in the paths or from the outside on the melon, this lends itself to bet backs and bet against. How do you want to suggest that people dive into this second half of the meet?
I did those replays actually yesterday, so there are quite a few horses that were on dead rails on, I believe it was August 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think were the days that were pretty severe outside closer.
Definitely 5th and 6th, right?
Definitely, no, I think it's definitely the 4th and 5th. I think the 6th is questionable, but it's definitely the 4th and the 5th. And I did note a lot of horses that did run well on the inside, so there are going to be horses to play off those days if you're paying attention.
And I keep in mind this track has jumped around and it's changed quite a bit. Primarily because of the weather, primarily some to do with the new modern ways of they do tracks. It's not the old school way of doing things with track maintenance, so you got to be paying attention. There's within day changes. That's something that's a new handicapping phenomena that, say 5-10 years ago we never had to worry about. I think speed figures are going to be very difficult to do. I know last week I had a lot of trouble. I noticed in the times yesterday, you're going to be
yesterday's
you're
track
going to have a hard
change.
time really doing those, Steve. It's just an absolute, the 6.5 furlong race went 119 in the Adirondack, and then later on it seemed to speed up a little bit, and it's questionable if the rail got good late in the day. So the guys are doing their homework. I think are going to do good off of this meet.
Well, and that's a theme that we can advertise and suggest at all times. If you're taking the game seriously, you got to put in the work.
Well, this is also a good time to fold in, because we were talking before about days like this where they're off the turf. And I said I talked to you earlier in the meet, walking out, and it was one of these days. And you said usually I do pretty well on a day like this. I'm the same, because I think it's a day when the general public kind of doesn't get clued in often on the switch to the main track, and so you get some false favorites, and there's some value out there potentially on days like this.
Yeah, you got to make adjustments on days like this, because when you look at the form and you got 6 turf races and now they're all running on the dirt, so probably the average person can't catch up. You can't catch up at least before the pick 5 starts. That's for sure. So now you got, if you can quickly generate, put the scratches in and form some opinions early on, you might be able to beat everybody to the
theory too about these days too with off the turf. I think in the modern day handicapping, there's so much transferring of information and picks and steam. It's like all over the place. And when this comes up, it's like it's out the window. Nobody has any idea. And now it's back to the old school handicapping. And that's why I think that you and I and the guys who, the traditional handicappers, do better on days like these. I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think there's some truth in it.
No, there's a lot of truth in it. Yesterday, Duke, you mentioned having to move quickly when word came that races 4 and 5 were coming off the turf. That gave you only about 40 minutes to refashion if you wanted to play the pick 5. And in that group of races, obviously the tough horse was Cairo Cat, but if you had the chance to really go back and dig around, you could have come up with Cairo Cat, made some. You couldn't on Thoroughgraph. I tell you what, as a Thoroughgraph horse, as the Thoroughgraph horse for dirt, it was there.
Yeah, I mean the race was wide open. It was a spread race. Even when it came off, it was a spread race.
Well, but Greek Alphabet paid $7.
Well, that was the key. I think that's a better analogy. That horse became a
single.
There he is.
Yeah, Greek Alphabet became my single of the day.
How about that?
But the problem was I didn't have Cairo Cat.
Right.
And the other problem was I was getting a sandwich about 12:45, and I had to get the pick 5 in by, post time, so it was kind of tough. So I was walking to the track. And
I think we got a little unlucky in that race too, the one with Cairo Cat. I mean, I think he might arguably been the 5th best horse, the way that the race was run. They kind of, the 14 forced the hand of Dylan Davis to go early, which we used that long shot, the 5, who ran really well. And then the horses that came on the outside got the 8 started going in and out.
Oh, the 8 was zigzagging through the stretch.
On the other horses. And
that was the favorite. Was that the Chad? That was
the overbet.
That was the Chad.
The 3 in that race ran really well, I think. Wasn't that a Todd Firster that got left and circled? Yeah.
They're all getting left and circling.
Yeah.
What is that's something people have had to adjust to.
People asked me that yesterday, and I went to
Operate.
I went to John the Clocker for maybe some info on that. He thinks it's because he's training most of his horses over at Oklahoma. That's what he says. He says the gate's different there versus here. I don't know much about that, but that's what he told me.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Cairo Cat obviously boosts what ends up being a bonanza pick 5. The other day, I'll also mention the 2 horses. There was the carryover that we had going into Thursday, and Mamo, the invader from was that the Finger? No, the Finger Lakes invader was Sally Iorio in the nightcap. Mama White Sox. How that horse paid what it paid, $18, and how Mamo paid $10 was astounding.
Well, I think it goes back to what Seth and I were talking about. When the races makeup changes quickly, I think it's an advantage for everybody, because we're in a new environment. And I listened to you earlier, and I do think there's some truth in the fact that there's the robotic wagering is probably a little behind on these off the turfs. My nephew and I we're working on a project to do a little robotic stuff, and all the things that you have to be on your toes to do is it's very difficult, and I'm sure it's something that it's probably not high priority because it's not a lot of races per year, and I think that it's not an easy thing to accomplish when you start going through the process of trying to all right, what am I going to do? We got to switch all of the stuff from turf to dirt. Then we got to get the scratches. Then we have to, the betting patterns. Then we have to analyze how the race is being bet, when it was come off the turf. There's a lot there for for a computer to pick up. And I think I said this on the radio show with you before. I mean, those are things that I think the handicappers will always have an advantage over the computer side.
Well, and that quote of yours on radio about a month ago really took root. This came after the Dwyer, and after there was complete bewilderment at what transpired in the Dwyer. And we did have Marshall Graham with us a couple of weeks ago and discussed some of it with him. A great opportunity to have the two of you here, and knowing the kind of volume wagering that you do. Paul, from your perspective, and Duke, give us how you suggest the serious and the casual player, how they should react and view the computer batch wagering, the computer robotics that are creating this late odds change scenario that people are really frustrated with, and we understand why they're frustrated. But like anything around this game, understand it and utilize your understanding to take advantage as best you can.
Well, I mean, understanding is the most important thing, I think. That you're going to see some changes coming up. I've talked to some people that have the technology, and we talked about that too, trying to make things better for the better and giving them more technology in their hands. And I think we're going to see it. We're going to see imputed odds for what the odds should be based on the will pays, and then we're going to see odds based on the exactas, and hopefully we don't have the technology because the tow companies are 30, 40 years behind. But I think they'll even get the triples and supers once they realize how powerful it is that we can see, all right, that this horse is really, he's on the board at 6-1, but his overall odds on all the pools are 4-1. So.
How is it that the South American tote companies are able to give us the veils, the trifecta veils, and we can't?
We shouldn't go down that.
Is this a rabbit hole, Duke? Are you ready to? Duke, the steam is coming out of Duke's ears.
Yeah, you don't want to get me talking about it. I mean, I'm frustrated enough when I see a horse that I bet that's 6-1 and goes to 5-2 in the last flash. So I mean, it is amazing.
But you do know it's coming. I mean, are you wagering?
Do I know it's coming?
Your best.
I think sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't. That's the frustrating part. So when you do bet a horse that you think is going to go off, maybe you think he's going to go off 4-1, and it gets buried like to 2-1. That's extremely frustrating because you're not betting enough, and you don't have the opportunity to bet as many bets as they do in the last 20 seconds.
And you can't counter it.
There's no way to counter that. I mean, once it goes down, what do? I'd rather cancel the bet.
I've asked you on occasion to elaborate about the B and C tracks. I mean, the assumption is that players on your level are focused on California and Florida and New York, but in fact, you're quite willing and quite happy to bet the B and C circuits.
But they're hurt worse. I mean, that's the one thing I've noticed by this new wave of computer playing. A place like Mountaineer, which was an absolute gold mine for years and years. It was a night thoroughbred track that a lot of players would play after work and that sort of thing, and it was pretty easy pickings. But the computer guys have come in and just demolished any value you have at all at Mountaineer, and it's a huge problem for the industry, and it's gonna, you gotta deal with it as a player. You gotta deal with the way you can, but I do believe there's some advantages, but I don't think it's an easy. The solutions aren't easy, and I find that frustrating when you ask me or if somebody else asks me, walking around the track, what do I do? It's not a 3-word answer.
There's not a lot you can do. I mean, what can you do? What can you do when a horse drops that kind of odds after you play it?
If you are part of the betting public that is frustrated with this, are you better off trying to leverage your opinion into pick 4s and pick 5s, and where they can't participate to the level they do individuals?
That's generally what we do, but the problem in New York when you bet a pick 4 or pick 5 is right now is either weather or track changes. I mean, at Gulfstream, I seem to be doing better at Gulfstream than anywhere, and I think it's because there's large fields, and they seem to have not a lot of what you call wise guy, big time odds changes at the end, and I think it's because the races are difficult.
Which is interesting because the volume continues to be rather remarkable at Gulfstream during this off season. Certainly, dwarfing what Calder would do at this time of year, and we know that the computer groups have cozied up, or Stronach Group has cozied up to them.
Certainly, yeah. But I don't know why I'm doing better there, but it just seems to be, maybe because I'm following it closely. Maybe a lot of guys like them aren't, like Paul and Seth aren't. I don't know.
Is it also potentially, and I don't want to completely color it this way, but at least really for the most part, it's cheap racing right now. It's lower level, and in terms of the quality, I mean, there are allowances and there are maiden specials and so forth. But is it? I've heard. I think it was probably Brad Free that convinced me several years ago when I used to voice frustration at cheap maiden races and at low level starter allowances, and Brad said, I love them. They're the easiest for me to handicap because the horses are formful.
Yeah, they're great, and there's a lot of conditions. There's a lot of conditions. Horses can actually make drops like they used to, like in the old days. There's small
claiming
drops.
races.
A lot of cheap claiming, never won twos, never won
Real
threes.
claiming races.
And so
Which we've lost in New
you
York.
learn which races were more live than others, and not only that, they've had a little bit of a dead rail down there for a while, which is becoming the norm everywhere. But and that's helped too, because sheep players don't win as much when there's dead rails.
So that's interesting. You don't like the open claimers, or you like the open claimers as opposed to now that these conditional claims that have become kind of the norm all over the place?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think the open claimers are the most formful races that we've ever had in racing. But we do have a lot of other outside factors. I mean, this is one of the things that I'm trying to tackle. I'm on this new Thoroughbred Ideas Foundation board, and I'm trying to push that we have some problems, particularly in New York, with the condition book, big stables dominating, and just getting the right races to go, and we have to really use some new ideas to come up with, think outside the box completely than from what we've had in the past, because the old stuff's not working, and the weather's been bad, and I know that's hurt the racing a little bit here at this meet, but NYRA has a problem with a small product problem right now, because we're not getting the full fields in with good horses enough.
You're not getting a full field claiming $25,000 race.
No, there is.
I mean,
that's
if you don't get that, I mean, what?
We don't have a one other than. A one other than is a staple of New York racing.
Right.
I was talking to Mark Hopkins about figures related, and he said, well, you just got to compare the one other thans. But I said to him, no, the one other than doesn't resemble. The one other than in 1988 doesn't resemble the one in 2018. It's it's 5 horses with 2 trainers, or 6 horses with 3 trainers.
Yeah, we don't run enough dirt races with more than 6 horses in it. I mean, you think about all the dirt races they've run up here that were scheduled for the dirt. If it's not a 2-year-old race, it's got 6 horses in it.
Even a 35 claimer on the turf, which is a staple of Saratoga. I mean, when I was younger, that was always one of the best races. It was 14 horses. An Angel would split 3 horses 3 times and win it. You just remember these things about it, and now, we don't even have those. I mean, they used to run the first race of the meet. It was always 12 horses, and on the. Yeah.
Did you read Clancy's column the other day in the Saratoga special, where he was giving some ideas aimed at the idea of, and he talked about conditions, and there were a few good ideas in there, but one of them was conditions that would be for horses that were bought for, like, let's say less than $100,000 or less than $50,000, which then would take maybe some of those big outfits out.
Santa Anita experimented with it this past winter. Rick Hammerly put that. They did that, and it included homebreds, and up pops Mike Pegram with some homebreds by Cat Burglar and whatever that Baffert's training, and so even under that scenario, there's some challenges.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's it's not going to be easy. I'm not somebody that's being critical and saying, they're doing this wrong or it's anybody's fault. I just think moving forward, if we're gonna make this product bettable, and I think it should just even get better. It seems like everything else is better at Saratoga. When you're here, the worst part is that the races aren't better. And I have some crazy ideas, like I always do. But even if they use, just partially some of them, but I'm sure there's a lot of smart minds. And you were talking about Marshall Graham, and there's hundreds, or not thousands, of smart people that are in racing, and the fans are probably the smartest. I always say that. When you talk to somebody in the stands, and I've been given about 15 horses at this meet. I think every single one of them run first or second. I look at the figures, I look at it, and I say, yeah, it looks all right, but I don't have any idea why they like them, and
going off the screen.
Because horse players are smart, so and they're going to realize that the product is not as good, and then, like Duke, he's going to go to Gulfstream, and somebody else is going to make a different move. So we have to make the product better, and I don't like the exclusion on that, for Seth's point, because I don't think the idea is to get rid of, Chad Brown, or to get rid of Todd Pletcher, or to get rid of Graham Motion, the guys who have thousands of horses. But because if you start doing that, then they're going to have a horse for that race too. We need to think of it in a different way. Of doing the races, and hopefully, with this Thoroughbred Ideas Foundation, we can make some kind of step in that direction.
You gotta keep the little guys in the game, though. If you don't keep the little guys, if they can't make the money, it's just like, if you go back like 20 years, Bay Meadows was a great track to bet.
Right.
And then when Hollendorfer started winning 40-50% of the races, that place went downhill so fast. And if Chad starts winning 40-50% of the races, it's just you got to keep the little guy happy here. Or, he's got to get it. He's got to get a bone here.
And that's another.
So they got to run.
New York. I mean, the winter program has got to keep these guys alive more, and we don't want to go down that road either. But with the workman's comp and the challenges that the smaller trainers are facing, that has definitely been a factor on the product here. There's no doubt in my mind that that's been a huge factor.
And again, we should remind people you guys are keyed into what's going on there with your brother,
Yes.
who's training on the
Who threatens to quit about every week.
You talked about when you were young, and years ago at Saratoga, that picture you put up. Do we have? I sent it to the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody would enjoy it if do we have it?
All right.
Oh, good. Here, you got this is precious. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I tweeted that out on Duke's birthday.
The Saratoga shirts too, yeah. Like
The original ones. I think they're the first year.
That was
was
of
it?
giveaways.
The giveaways.
That was the first giveaway shirts.
Yeah,
81.
81, and they faded terribly, unfortunately. Somebody at Twitter asked me if I had one, and I wish I did, because they'd be worth. But they faded really bad. But they were.
He's already got binoculars and probably a stopwatch too.
Exactly. It's amazing. And you've already got a look of disgust.
That's true. That is
You're already
true.
pissed off about
That's
something.
right.
He was probably yelling at Velasquez or something after that.
Georgie
Yeah.
Velasquez, not John.
Yeah, Georgie.
Speaking of Cordero, Pro Velasquez. I got to ask you guys. Obviously, prominent contest players. You typically wind up in Vegas. Have you guys qualified for Vegas? And just let people know, how many contests do you play a year to qualify?
I've played probably 10 this year, mostly at Santa Anita because that's closest to me. And I'm double qualified for the NHC. I finished third in the last tournament, and the tournament that comes to mind that I played was the one that the World Horse Players thing, because I was like sixth with one race to go, and I took a really big swing in the last race to get to first, because I thought it was a big edge if you got to first, the way that new format is with the blinds and all that. So. And my son and I were watching the last race in the contest room, and horse takes the lead. He's like 7 or 8 to 1, and I got 3,000 to win on him. And he gets nailed on the wire, and I finished maybe 12th, so I missed the top 8. And then I get a text from my brother Paul. He said I tried to call you. I liked that horse in the last at Santa Anita. So after being extremely upset, I was even more upset because he hit the race, and I didn't like the horse. So, but I play, you know, I don't play too many, but I play. I definitely want to get into the NHC every year, and
That's pretty good, though.
That's the best
double
tournament.
qualify and you play 10 tournaments. That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to play some of these other ones that are just with the big entry fees. There's so much going into the prize fund, and if there's nothing really there to win,
Yeah.
I mean, what's there to win? I'm not going to put up half my money into a prize fund that I don't need an NHC spot, so it's like I just don't see the value in
Yeah.
it. But I mean, I like to play them. I mean, but the NHC is definitely our favorite tournament by far.
Yeah, I qualified for the NHC in Santa Anita as well. I played Monmouth and I played Saratoga for the money contest. You know, I had a weird thing happen when I qualified for the Santa Anita because it was a pick your prize type thing, and the Pegasus is worth the most, and I had a chance to get it in the Pegasus, the BCBC, or the NHC because I finished second, and I took the NHC, which everybody was making fun of me on. But my two main goals that I want to win the NHC and I want to win the World Series in Las Vegas. They're my two major ones. I wouldn't mind winning this one here at Saratoga. This one's a little tougher now because it's 2 days and it's kind of a lesser thing. But if this got bigger, I wouldn't mind winning one at Saratoga either. But those are my two main goals of the year. So you have to qualify for the NHC. So I play till I get qualified. And then after that, I don't play all that much. You know, I thought about this after because of that contest, and Duke and I are going to play 12,500 on those races on Gulfstream on the Pegasus, you know, and some of these other guys probably aren't gonna, but it's already factored into our bankrolls, you know, like the BCBC even. I'm going to bet a lot on the BCBC. If I'm right during the Breeders' Cup Day, without the contest, you know,
right,
and it's in our factor. So they say, well, it's worth this much. Well, it's not that much because we've already factored it in our betting for the year that we're going to play a lot on those days. So. And you can't get in the NHC if you don't qualify. So that's a kind of a elite spot for me. So I know the mathematics aren't there, but for me, that was an easy decision.
I'll toss this out there as well because I've never been out there. I wish I had more time to play the contest. I love them. You have to think a little bit differently. But and I will applaud my co-host because when the NHC out in Vegas comes up, I listen to your coverage on the radio and you think, oh, a horse racing handicapping contest on the radio. How I said, but it's always a lot of fun. And you guys were on last, and you just get the whole feeling of, you talk about how smart horse players are, and you get the feeling by listening to the radio show just how true that is, and the camaraderie and the fun. I would love to play more and qualify myself, but it seems like that Vegas contest just is a real room full of real horse players. They're totally into it, smart guys and women as well.
Yeah, the atmosphere at the NHC is different from almost any of the other tournaments. I mean, the money tournaments, you don't get that where everybody's in the same room and people go bet on
Well, if a big shot like
machines.
Steve Bick's going to show up too. You know?
Yeah, and when Steve's there, he makes it. 'cause
You know it's a big deal, you know.
I barely missed the final table again, and so we went on for what did we want, a couple hours?
Oh, it was, and
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
the
fun.
highlight
It
of the
was fun.
coverage.
Yeah, so we went a couple
because
hours
You
and-
guys were, the gloves were off. You want raw opinion. These two, and you want to understand what's going on in the mind of a player in that scenario. And
It was also
that
great.
was-
The winner scored, and Paul was after the winner scored with the final bet.
Yeah.
Paul said, "I wouldn't have played that." Even after he won it, you were
No, I
critical.
still think he made a mistake. He picked the winner, the horse won, and I still think he played wrong. But that's racing, you know. Contests are a little bit different, though. You got to, like you said, you got to play a little bit differently. And he set himself up to lose. I mean, his ability overcame his strategy, you know, to be able to pick the winner.
That was
But-
great, though. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Couple of minutes left, and I do want to circle back and get a couple of opinions and maybe some second half concepts. You mentioned being out at Santa Anita, and I was fortunate enough, just the way the broadcast schedule I laid it out was there for Big Cap Week and for Santa Anita Derby Week.
For you.
Which resulted in being there for Justify's second and third starts. The allowance win. In fact, we were all together.
Yeah, I was with you for the.
And
yeah.
we on the backstretch. You were convinced. Oh my God, Justify's dying. He can't win from there. But we got to watch it, and then of course the Triple Crown run, and got to mention your impressions of this 3-year-old crop that I think is morphing again, and I got a feeling we're in store for a absolutely dynamite Travers. Talk about the second half of the year. We have got the Travers, we've got the Pennsylvania Derby, and I think the 3-year-olds are yet to, the rest of them other than Justify. Your final thoughts on him, and then the rest of this crop going forward.
You really want my thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think the 3-year-olds this year are probably close to the worst ever. I mean, I don't see any. I mean, Justify, his figures are very, very low for a Triple Crown winner, and I don't see anything up and coming that's improving. But I guess Gronkowski maybe he could.
Just because he's an unknown quantity.
Yeah, because he only had one shot against him and he ran second to him. But I really don't think there's anything out there that. I don't think Todd has much that's going to improve, and I mean, I'm not a big fan of that horse. I've just never been a fan of that horse.
Coming out of the West Virginia,
He
ran huge.
Yeah, he's got a good setup. You know, I mean, that's one of the problems I think with all the 3 winners in the West Virginia. They all ran, they all made a step forward figure-wise. Good Magic, Hosberg, and Mr. Freeze, but all of them had good setups. I got a good story about. I had a prediction that Justify was not going to run again. So when the Breeders' Cup Futures came out for the Breeders' Cup Classic, I wanted to play a bunch of them because he was skewing the odds. He was 2-1, I think, in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and I didn't even think he should be 2-1. Though I have a little bit different take on Justify, and I'll wheel back to that. But so I wanted to get a bet in on on the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I've got a bunch of Breeders' Cup Classic bets that have no chance. I got good value on them, but they have no chance. I mean, I got 50-1 shots and 100-1s on that Dallas Stewart horse and a couple Dale Romans horses, and none of them are going to win.
Code Blue.
But I think I made Code Blue. I made a good bet though, because at the time they were all longer odds than they should be.
And that's what it's about, whether it's a future book or whether it's day to day.
I have one on Catholic Boy, which I think is an interesting one, because. You know, I think he's got upside. You know, and if he did win the Travers, he might be able to go for it. I'm not usually a turf to dirt horse, but I think Catholic Boy is a dirt horse running on the turf. Who's equally well.
Who's
maybe
he by? You know, who's Catholic?
Is he Scat Daddy too?
I think he is.
Yeah, and to talk about Justify, I think figure wise, and I'm a figure guy, so I can be. Critical of the horses usually. The only thing I would say about Justify is that Baffert hurried him so much to get into the big races that I don't think it's a weird feeling, because I think we never saw the best of Justify, and I think he would have run a better race down the road. But the 3 races that won the Triple Crown, you have to agree with Duke, it's probably the worst 3 races that ever won a Triple Crown. But and that's modern day racing. If you want to, circle it back to the other thing, these trainers can get the horses to run better when they have 2 months.
6 weeks, yeah.
So any horse that's going to win the Triple Crown, probably with this group of trainers and this group of environment, is going to fit this Justify mold where, all right, he won the Triple Crown, but we're not going to see the Secretariat where he blossomed in the last race and become the best. That's probably gone, in racing. So I do think we're going to see more Triple Crown winners just because of the environment. Everybody owns every horse. There's no competition between the owners. There's 4 trainers that can win it, because they got all the horses. So, and everybody gives up after the Derby. Everybody comes in the Derby.
Everybody wants to be in a Derby.
Nobody cares after that. Nobody wants to win these other races. That's why I tweeted, they got to make these races worth more money.
They got to put more money in the Preakness, for sure.
The Preakness has got to be $5 million. The Belmont's got to be $10 million. I mean, the Breeders' Cup Classic and these other races are that much money. Why isn't the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont? They're the biggest races we have.
The Derby should be $5 million
easily.
And it could be $100 million. Well,
and there is a move afoot in Kentucky to put Churchill's feet to the fire regarding the Derby purse. That it's almost embarrassing.
Yeah,
it is.
It's $1 million from them and $1 million in entry fees.
Right.
I mean,
That's
recognize that the 20 horses are putting up 50 grand each. So how is this race not $5 million?
Creates all this money.
It's preposterous.
They make so much money, it's scary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I bought tickets this year to sit there. I'm betting $50,000, a day there, and I'm paying $5,000 to sit somewhere. I mean, come on, it's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah, I mean that race has got to be. I mean, they got. And the stud fee argument is long gone. That this argument. Well, he's worth so much money because if he wins the race. Well, first of all, that's not true. We've seen a bunch of them.
We saw from California Chrome
Right.
by Lucky Pulpit. That got him nothing.
Florida Jones. I mean, there's a long list of them.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't. This horse was a little different because of the. If
Right.
Scat Daddy was still alive,
Right.
there might have been a different scenario afoot with him staying on, and Baffert could have taken his time. They could have worked toward a 4-year-old year. But with Scat Daddy dead, this horse becomes the heir apparent to Scat Daddy.
Yeah, I just don't like that argument. I mean, let's make this race the biggest race in the world, like it should be. Personally. And the other two, too. They have to be worth a lot of money, too.
The Preakness has got to go way up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they're going to get more people to run it.
And maybe we'll see these horses develop later, too, where it's not a big hurry just to get in the, in the preps. You see a lot of these horses, I think this year in particular, we're talking about the crop, they were over the top in April. A bunch of these horses,
Well, you can run in the Pennsylvania Derby for $1 million, and then the Preakness is only worth that.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you run in the Preakness in 2 weeks if you can wait 3 months and run against nothing for $1 million?
It just doesn't make sense.
An opinion today.
An opinion.
Come on. Come up with something.
Melon.
It's a delicious melon. That's a good opinion.
I don't have scratches yet, but
I just pulled them up. So if you mention one that's out, I will alert you.
I like Take Notice in the first race.
Still in.
Still in, okay.
And if Lucas had won the contest, I would have won the contest yesterday if Lucas had won that race where he ran second to the sixth. I put all my eggs in that basket.
Derby Date.
Yeah.
Talked about that horse on Friday, and then like a moron, I didn't use him right in the race. On Friday, I said to Nick Tamero, I said, I'll tell you who's going to run well out of here is Derby Date. Right. They didn't name the horse Derby Date if they didn't think. There's a few clues that are out there, folks. It's as dumb as it sounds.
Yeah, he definitely had talent. That's the old analogy. If somebody names one fast, you can definitely know.
Fast Bullet, Fast Anna, absolutely.
And the other they name Slow or Rat or Ratatouille or something like that.
Well, hopefully Take Notice is well named here today. But I think if he gets aggressive in the first race, I think he'll be really tough. Well, you had some opinions.
Well, I got an opinion in the third race. I think Navarro's here to get claimed. I don't think he's not here to win at Saratoga. He's not here to for the sale tonight or anything. I think he's here to get claimed. So I'm kind of against him in that race. Even though he probably didn't get the best of trips the first time off the lap. It smells to me that the whole purpose of the trip is to get claimed. So that opens up the race if you believe that, the Data Driven is probably the right horse.
I thought Lady Apple might wire the field in the 6th. That horse got a pretty big pace figure. Thought maybe might be able to get in front.
They paid a lot of money for that Lady Apple too.
And they thought highly enough of her to put her right into the stake, and she almost won. I don't disagree. Moquette has a look in there at a price for the Leblongs as well. Wild Moment, I thought. And then here's Chad with Feedback at 9-2, and those are the three that I came up with too.
Yeah, that horse has got a pretty. I think Truth is won first time out. I think that was a half sister to that horse.
I have a horse I'm interested in the race before it, the 5th race, and I don't. Is the 9 out, Seth?
Nope.
No.
9 is
I
still in.
didn't think he was going to come out. I think this horse this filly here is well met, Barclay Tag horse, and it's a little bit of a weird thing because it's a Barclay Tag first time starter.
Brucia Laterra is the horse.
I really like the
12-1
workout pattern. I like the way she's been working, and the El Padrino has had a lot of first out winners. And Barkley can win first time if the horses are good. And he's had a good meet, too. I think the horse is really tricky in there.
What about Leora for Catalano?
That one's out 8.
That's
I like the 8 too.
Keep an eye out for Leora,
That
who
horse
Wayne
ran well,
Catalano, he talked about on the radio actually with us last week.
Yeah, that was my top pick, but that one.
You see that Todd's got a full sister to Verrazano running in the last. Main track only.
Ayers Rock.
Full sister to Verrazano. Oh, I think won by many lengths at Gulfstream in his first start.
The Full Brothers.
That's right.
By Chick out of, what's your mother? I forget your mother's name. Linda. Absolutely productive, and as always, it's it's so much fun to get you two here.
I feel not today. I've noticed all day. I was watching earlier. I feel sorry for Seth on this Sunday show. You have a big shot. You go around all around the world. You come here on Sundays and you just mail it in half the time. And
that's outrageous.
I feel like Seth is like playing. He's like playing with Willie Mays when he was on the Mets. Award winner. If you come in here,
what award did I win?
Well, you turn down the Eclipse Award every year, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Mail it in. I mean, I'm shocked to be.
You bring melons on this. Would you do this if Bob Baffert was on the?
Absolutely. I used to bring these
on the radio show?
when I had the barbecue. I used to bring them for Zito's. I used to bring melons for Zito. Absolutely.
The Baffert? You give.
I would if I would bring Baffert a melon.
I want to see next week when you got Todd on. I want you to give him a melon.
A melon? All right, we can do that. We used to have those yellow flesh watermelons. Did you have those?
Yellow watermelon?
The yellow flesh watermelon, about that size, a little bit bigger.
No.
Oh, you don't know.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
No, we don't. People are hanging on to every word.
We are rooting for you guys, though. Again, to bring the check. You brought the Boston Spa, but we're rooting. Obviously, hometown hero. You're out of town now.
Let Duke win one.
He's been close every year. He makes the finals every year.
It's getting frustrating. I think I've been ever since they went to the cut thing. I've been in the finals every year, and I've only made the final table. Was it once?
Yeah, that time with you.
But yeah. I just missed the other 2 years. So.
And this year I really blew it. Though I wouldn't have won because I think that last race you mentioned would have cost me winning. But I should have made the finals, and then I won the consolation.
Oh yeah, the next day.
That's right. That's right.
So I beat everybody in the second day, and I was like $2 away from making the cut. So I did really good.
Oh, that's frustrating. Yeah, but that's part of horse racing.
Yes,
it shows that even at the highest level,
yeah,
it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Matisse brothers, Paul and Duke, we appreciate the visit as always.
Thank you.
It's one of the highlights of the Loose on the Lead year. Steve Bick, Seth Merrill, Loose on the Lead every Sunday morning. So that was part one of our three-part series, taking a look at the 2018 Saratoga season. Tune in next time. Part two up next.